Here we go, Friday night. All right, everybody's been waiting for Friday night to get here, right? Long work week, but we got games to talk about, an unbelievable amount of news to go over tonight. Got a great panel assembled. Very excited to have everybody here. Guys, make sure you let me know the audio is doing well. I see Domino Zero. Iceman, great to have you here. I don't know why the Mets can't win, buddy. I just don't know. We've got the richest owner in baseball. We're not going to talk sports. We're not. Or my Giants. I guess I'll have to wait a full year until we get something done in New York, something right. But nonetheless, guys, outstanding show tonight. I promised you guys we wouldn't talk too much ABK deal, right? I said we're not going to do that. It's something we're not going to do. But we have to do it. We have to. They're forcing me. Forced. I'm being forced. So nonetheless, we have an outstanding panel. You guys can see who's right there. Look at that great day. It's right there. Outstanding. We've got a few more special guests joining us. As well as the Great Gaming Forte. The Great Gaming Forte stopping by in a little while. I'm very excited to hear what Forte's got to say this week. And I do want to say thank you to everybody. It's been a great week. A lot of people writing me. A lot of people on PlayStation, Xbox writing me about the news and everything that's been going on. DMing on Twitter. It's been phenomenal. If you guys would just take a second, hit a few buttons. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Your name comes up in lights. It's fantastic. And if you will, look at that amazing description I wrote down there, will you? Outstanding. Look at that. I mean, I actually took a few minutes to read it before the show went live. Right above that's that join button. Hang out with the Mooch Maniac family members all the time. All the time. I see Neil Augusto, Mary Wilcox. I see you, Kratos. All you guys are here. It's really great. Please tweet it out. Let everybody know that we're live here in New York. It's going to be a great show. And I'd like to just call each one of these individuals one by one because I absolutely love these folks. They hang out with me. They talk to me. They game with me. And I just can't say thank you enough. Let me say thank you to each one of them one by one by calling them out. The great Surex Man, JudaZuk, WoolleyGamer, who's going to be on next week, MumbleRanting Gaming, Tyson Web 509, TrueWiddy, Alphonso Carter, BRAP. BRAP may be joining us. He's a little under the weather. Send him a tweet. Say, hope you're feeling better. Hope you're feeling better, BRAP. Hopefully he can make the show. The great BRAP, everybody. Jamie, Damion, the great Jimmy Harrison, who I was talking to before the show even started. Andy Hart, Red Hood 420, Hamsolo05, Rob Jones, Night Ripper 7, Toto Dope, Thumbs, JC 2013, Passive Prophet, Lord Metroid, Rabbit Got the Gun, Fastbender, Archwar Angel, who's here, Biggity 08, Sonyverse, the great Slow-Mo Backslap, who's also not feeling so great. Send him out there a little bit of a hope you get better as well, the great Slow-Mo Backslap. Henry Heck, Silent Merc, our newest Mooch Maniac, Edward Jordan. Great to have Edward here. Our major Mooch Maniacs, AD, Truth Serum, RPG88, who's here in the chat, Julian Johnson, your boy Roy, Scolari's brothers. Is that just one Scolari or are there two listening to the show? I'd like to know. Smokes 901, DC Gaming, who you're going to hear from momentarily. Miko, Gaming with Persona, and Jay Bari, who have What's Up PlayStation tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Please go over and check that out tomorrow. It's how I start my Saturdays. It's how I encourage you guys start yours. Tactical Gamer, Danelle Brown, That Guy Smitty, Brian B, a.k.a. Delirium Blades, and our VIP Mooch Maniacs, Raji, Domino Zero, the wise old gamer, and our honorable mentions. We miss you. You're out there without food, water, or toilet. Come home. General Thane, Ape, Shadow Assassin, Supreme Samurai, 4-Star General, DexFlex 27, and our forever Mooch Maniacs, Longshot 316, and the great Optimus Code. Also get a chance to see the great Zuby Tech. Zuby, thanks for everything that you do in the news out there on Twitter, or X now, as it likes to be known as. But Zuby, great to have you. I know it's late in your neck of the woods, but to have you here in the audience is just, I got to say I'm humble, buddy. I can't believe it. It's fantastic. As I say that, and as I welcome this amazing panel, the man himself, I even said he wasn't feeling too great, but this is how much of a podcaster he is. He's hardcore, absolutely hardcore. He does every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Basement, Radio, Arcade, Podcast, BRAP. BRAP, how you doing tonight, buddy? Good to have you here.
Hey, what's going on, Mooch? Happy to be here. A little under the weather.
Yeah.
It's funny you say it's that time of year. It's like the kids get back to school and they bring everything back home.
They do,
like literally
buddy.
everything, like stomach viruses,
outbreak monkeys, bro.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, you know how it is, man. You know.
Yeah, man.
It's just like they bring everything home, and it's like, yeah. Well, but no, it's great to be here. Great panel, by the way,
Buddy,
as always.
It's going to be fun tonight,
chat,
BRAP,
yeah.
and that's why I gave BRAP a little bit of crap before the scene, because I got to be honest with you, BRAP being on tonight, I mean, this show is made for you, BRAP. Honestly, I could just do the intros and then I could take off for 2 hours. You could handle this. This is your show. This is what you love more than anything else. Especially the great David Faulkner's going to be joining us very shortly as well. But I want to say, BRAP, which outstanding BRAP as well. He was on your show as well Wednesday. He really broke down the evidence one by one. But I'm going to get through the rest of this amazing panel here. Listen, as we're talking about ABK deals, leaked emails, new games that are coming out, you see that Twitter is a rise, right? Everybody is absolutely on edge. The console wars have been sparked thanks to the CMA. And when things like this happen, I have to call my good friend, the voice of reason. And we even did an audio check because he's got some housework going on. He says, Mooch, I'm not sure I can get there. I said, I have to have you on tonight. There's just no way around it. If I had to fly him to New York from Florida, I would have done it. The great Eric Jackson is back with us. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Happy to be here. Glad we were able to work that out. Fortunately, like the guy got done earlier, putting up drywall, so I was able to get the setup back up. Either way, we had the backup ready to go. So
absolutely
glad I didn't have to cancel and not make it again. So yeah, happy to be here, man. Great panel.
Great to have you, buddy. And you sound phenomenal, by the way. We were talking about sound checks. Whatever you just did with the setup when you reset it up, it sounds even better than it ever has on the show.
I got closer. Apparently, that's what we figured out. I wasn't close enough to the mic.
I was trying to make us sound a little bit smarter, like we were actually doing some technical work. All we did was move you closer to the mic.
Right.
Anyways, it sounds great here. One of the things we love to do on the show is bring some new folks on. I do see the outstanding super chats. They're working. It's a miracle. Thank you, guys. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to read them right after I get through the panel. But I love to bring on not only supporters of the channel, but people that are vocal in the community, play games. And when they reach out to me and say, Mooch, listen, I'd love to be on CrossFire. Listen, that's all you got to say to me. It's all you got to say. Mooch, I'd love to be on CrossFire, and we're going to get you on. That being said, the great DC Gaming, who's been a huge supporter of the channel, here tonight as well. DC, great to finally have you on CrossFire, buddy. We've talked a lot on Twitter. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm doing good, but I'm gonna need Donnell Brown to chill on the Dolphin slander. This is our first good season in a while. Let us have this. It's been a long time.
Sports.
Donnell, he always got some slander, man. For the Heat, for the Dolphins. Relax, bro. Just relax. Let us have the moment for a little bit,
I can't believe he actually took the foot off the pedal on the New York Giants. That's all he does is he literally kills me in the DMs every single day. The minute that the game is over, I get a text from him. Amazing. The great Donnell Brown, everybody. And then last but certainly not least, our special guest here. Great to have him back on the show. You guys know him as Broken Games. BG, host, if you will, host of the Great Weapon Wheel podcast, 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time, the Lord's Time. On Sunday nights. BG, outstanding to have you on the show. You've been absolutely on fire. I didn't know this was going to happen. I asked you to do this a couple days ago. You've been on fire on Twitter today for various reasons we're going to get into in these topics. But BG, how you doing this evening?
I'm good. Glad you recognize, because we're both on the same time zone.
Yes, sir.
EST, God's chosen time zone. Good shout out there.
Yes, sir.
Been a crazy couple of days. Nobody saw that bomb coming overnight.
No.
And it's crazy. I'm usually asleep by that time. I just happened to be awake when that bomb fell.
It was a little much, and I don't like stuff that early, BG. Us New Yorkers, I don't know about you, but I think I can speak for both of us. We have to have our coffee. We got a little bit of a morning routine. I don't like news that late breaking, that breaking that soon. I wasn't ready for it, but it's going to be crazy tonight. It's going to be absolutely crazy. Great to have you here tonight. I've got the great Heinz White Hustle. I hope I'm saying that right. Hindsight with Hustle. My apologies, buddy. The print is so small over here. Hope all is well, everyone. Thank you, Hindsight. I appreciate that. The great Marty Bison is back. Hello, Mooch. Sorry I haven't been around for a while. How you doing tonight, sir? I'm doing great, and thank you so much for that super chat, Marty. Seen you very active as well on Twitter. I see Donnell Brown. Yeah, he's got to hit DC. At least he took a jab at DC. I know my jab's coming later. The Miami Dolphins suck. Take it easy, Donnell. Give him a break. Well, yeah, he's a special guest. The great Lord Metroid. Phil is dreaming about Nintendo. LOL, salute. The great Lord Metroid, a big Nintendo fan, always a big supporter of the channel as well. Thank you. And Redeem, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel, man. It means a lot. That being said, I like to put the guests on the hot seat first. So, BG, I got to go to you on this one. We're going to talk about it, the ABK deal, okay? The CMA decided late night to be able to go ahead and put this out there, and they have a situation where they're saying it's going to be, it's kind of a conditional acceptance here. I'll read this to you real quick. The sale of the Activision cloud streaming rights to Ubisoft will prevent this. This is from the CMA, by the way. Important content, including games such as Call of Duty, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, from coming under the control of Microsoft in relation to cloud gaming, end quote, from the CMA. The CMA originally found that Microsoft already has a strong position in cloud gaming services and could have used its control over Activision content to stifle competition and reinforce this position. The new deal instead results in the cloud streaming rights for Activision's games being transferred to an independent player, Ubisoft, maintaining open competition as the market for cloud gaming develops over the coming years. Okay, that's a lot. That's a rambling sentence, so I'm not even going to ask anything about that, BG. My real question for you is, where are you on this now that we're at the final step? I mean, this is going to go through. It's going to happen. They did make a bit of a change there where now Ubisoft has the streaming rights, the cloud rights. That's something that really steadfast with the CMA. Where are you on this at this point? You see all the chatter going back and forth on Twitter. You see the Xbox guys, the PlayStation guys. How does this affect not just you, but how does this affect gamers overall after we see Microsoft's report card after obtaining other companies as such?
I'm just glad it's over.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, I forgot when it was when we learned that they, CMA wanted this one stipulation for cloud gaming, and after that, it kind of died off the news cycle. It was like the greatest time in gaming that we've had in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Because people were focused on other gaming news, actual things that had to do with games, and the Activision deal had kind of fell to the wayside as far as the news cycle went, and other things were being discussed and talked about, and it was fun again instead of being held prisoner by this deal. So I'm just happy it's done. Listen, Xbox fans are happy with it. I'm happy that it's done and we get to move on and talk about actual games and see what happens moving forward. I think to see the result of things very fun.
Well, BG, you're one of the people on Twitter that the minute Metacritic ever puts out, it doesn't matter the game. It doesn't matter the game. They say, what do you think your Metacritic score is going to be? And you'll always quote the tweet, and then you'll put a number. And you're very, very loud about this. You're like, when it comes out, you're like, well, look it. Apparently I called it again. So you are very much in tune with the way that games are produced and then how they're rated afterwards. When you see how things have gone so far with the adaptation of IP, such as Gears, you see that they got Rare. You've seen with Bethesda and what's been going on there with the games that have been coming out, the bigger games anyways, not necessarily doing as well. Just as a gamer yourself, you have no problem with the way that Activision may be held under Microsoft's umbrella, or do you think that they are actually going to come in and take over and do a better job than what was going on with Bobby Kotick and his group?
I don't know if a lot of those Activision games, I don't really see them as games that are really affected by quality. I don't Call of Duty is such like a system at this point.
Yeah.
Can you really make the fans who play it kind of say, oh, this Call of Duty was worse than this one, but for the most part, each one just kind of stays at a certain line. It doesn't get that much worse or that much better. It kind of just stays plateaued where as far as the quality line goes. So I don't know if it really matters that they're under Activision, that they're under Microsoft now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like I said before, I don't think we're gonna get a whole bunch of new IPs that were dormant. That a lot of people were hoping for. I think they're not going to bring back a whole bunch of new IPs that are not going to make them money. A lot of people were hoping for that. I think that's wishful thinking. You're not about to get a prototype. That's not happening.
It's a good point.
Yeah, and I just don't know. I don't think the games are going to take some dip in quality or anything like that. They're just going to coast along as they have been. Crash Bandicoot is going to continue being Crash. Some of the other games. Like I said, the Bethesda stuff, some of those games weren't ever going to be made, and they still might not be made. We saw Dishonored and stuff in that leak and stuff. So some of the stuff is positive as far as the acquisition goes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it, I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference. I don't think this makes that much of a difference to consumers as much as it does to the business.
That's a good point, BG. You know, and I think when you talk about the IP themselves, I think that they can just kind of put it on cruise control and let the games do the talking the way they have been, right? Call of Duty's never really wowed anybody. We just buy it the same way we buy Madden every year, right? Madden comes out every year. We say it sucks, and then it sells a million, 25 million copies, pardon me. The great Jez7780 has joined us. Jez, of course, the audience here loves you, loves the show you do on the Grindhouse. Jez, I'll ask you a question just to piggyback here real quick, because BG kind of put things in perspective as far as the IP is concerned. The one thing that I bring up on this show, and I know you do it on yours as well, is that may very well be the case with games like Overwatch, games like Call of Duty, right? May not make these drastic changes. But what happens with talent retention, right? I mean, this is one of the things we're seeing. Microsoft absorbs these people, and unlike what Sony did with Bungie, where they did the extra so many billions of dollars to retain the folks, a lot of people, if they do end up leaving, do we see, or do we at least acquire the risk of a dip in performance and a dip in quality with our beloved Call of Duty and other Activision games?
Yeah, hey man, can you hear me? Am I good?
You're botting a little.
Botting. Hold on.
That's very un-Jez-like too. Jez is always it must have been he's just coming in last second here. Let's get him in here. Let's see if it's a little better. Jez, go ahead.
Yeah, you hear me now? Am I still botting?
Yeah, you're still botting for some reason. I don't know. Hopefully it's not an us problem.
Is that better?
A little bit.
All right, hold on.
Well,
might have to reset.
You might have to reset. That's what I was going to say, Jez. Why don't you go ahead and reset? I'm going to ask the great DC Gaming. DC, I know you're chomping at the bit at this.
I got you.
Oh, did you get it? All right, Jez, go ahead.
I don't know. Does it still work or no?
There you go.
You're crystal clear now.
All right. Yeah, you know what? It was my voice changer was on. Sorry from my last show.
That's all right, buddy. So what do you think of the talent? What do you think of the
Thank you. Yo, well, hey, everybody. How you doing? How's everybody doing here? Yo, so that question about the retention. For example, we've seen the dude that made Hi-Fi Rush, the guy that made Evil Within, he dropped that game and then he left. There's a different, they say it's hands off and probably they want to make sure that, there is not a lot of turnover, but I really don't think talent retention has been any part of their acquisition spree. I don't think they're really identifying talent, especially with the publisher acquisitions. I think more so with Ninja Theory and with Double Fine.
Yeah,
there's definitely more talent focused there. So with Tim Schafer and the capabilities of Ninja Theory's tech and all that other stuff. But I feel like when they went on this publisher spree, I don't think retention, except for Todd Howard, probably is the only thing to be for them to focus on. So I do think that there will be definitely some turnover with this whole acquisition thing. I don't know how they're going to manage it. It sounds like it's tons of employees, dude. So for them, I don't even know how they're going to even manage this stuff. And like what BG was saying too, Activision, one of the things I was thinking about too was Activision is not really known for dropping a plethora of games. They just bank on the Call of Duty annual releases, and then they will sprinkle in a little Crash Bandicoot, which was the recent few years. They really haven't, they're not a warehouse of games. And how many Diablos have we had? Diablo 3 to Diablo 4. They're not this kind of every quarter or every year they're dropping 4 and 5 games. They're not used to be Ubisoft stuff.
Right.
So for this acquisition, they say it's about the king and all this other stuff, but I really just don't see how the portfolio even changes except for just what typical Activision does. And now just Microsoft slaps their name on it. And, hopefully they don't mess up these games too much. My biggest concern with this whole thing is, when Microsoft is buying these publishers, they have complete control of how the game is designed, what it's going to be utilizing, how it's going to be, distributed, how this is going to work. So, they could change things a lot to Call of Duty and maybe, favor them, change it to Azure clouds, make it different types of structure. Maybe Call of Duty releases in a single player and a multiplayer part again, in addition to Warzone. I don't know. They could do whatever they want with this as long as they do it across everywhere. The Switch and that's even exciting too, that the Switch now gets a version that needs to be we see now what Mortal Kombat looks like on the Switch. holy shit, you know, now we'll see what Call of Duty looks like on the Switch. But yeah, I always said this deal was going to go through, but the contingencies and compromises that were going to be made make it just kind of null and void, and it's just really more of like what BG said, more about the business side of it than our side. But I am concerned with how we're going to receive it, because I do play Call of Duty every year, and you know, it is par for the course, and you know, they're kind of in like a little bit of a kind of a rut right now. Like they don't know where to go. Like that, the World War II was kind of rough, and then they went into last year was okay. Vanguard was bad, and then last year was okay. Now this year's kind of like, yeah, it's an expansion. No, it's not. It's $70. It's like, whoa, I don't know. Like, you know, so we'll see where they go from there. But let's see how they manage it. Just like what BG said, like, let's see how Microsoft drives this one, because they don't have a good track record. They haven't made anybody better. Redfall was not better because Phil Spencer was behind it.
Yeah, you know, good point on that, Jez. You know, DC, I'll go to you on this. Jez kind of just set a topic in my head on this that I didn't even think about. DC, a lot of people are like, a lot on the Xbox side are very, very excited. Like, well, now that Xbox has this team, they'll bring some of the beloved games, and I'm picking out like, you know, Guitar Hero or these other games that are in their war chest there, their IP closet. They'll come back out with these. But we don't really see that, right? Xbox, Microsoft bought Rare, and we haven't seen any of the beloved games that they've had that they could definitely bring back from the dead. They haven't done any of that. So I don't see Microsoft taking over Activision, and then all of a sudden we're going to get, and guys correct me, like the Tony Hawks and the Guitar Heroes and everything else coming out. I don't see all of these games coming out. DC, what is your thoughts overall on the acquisition?
Yeah, just like BJ and Jess said, I don't see them bringing back those IPs. At the end of the day, I don't think they really care about retaining the talent. It's really all just about owning the IP, and they'll just figure out all that other stuff later. Because even when ABK happened, you know, it's not like this was like a long, drawn out, planned acquisition. You know, it kind of happened spur of the moment because of all those allegations that were going on over there. But for the smaller IPs and stuff coming back, like you mentioned, like Guitar Hero, Prototype and stuff, I don't see them bringing that stuff back. Some people will say, oh, well, those will be perfect for Game Pass. You could take all these developers that are doing Call of Duty, that are doing stuck on that. They can work on that. But again, you know, they've been working on Call of Duty forever. Do they have the expertise to start making games on those IPs? And then if you do that, you know, how are you going to get Call of Duty out every year at the same quality if you're moving developers around, or you pulling them off projects and stuff like that? So no, well, I don't have a lot of faith in the acquisition. I don't think Microsoft's gonna give them some kind of magic war chest where they can just start doing stuff all of a sudden now. The one line I hated the most was like, oh, you know, we're bringing all these games to Nintendo. You know, if Activision wanted to do that, they would have done that. There's nothing holding them back from that. You know, it doesn't take Microsoft to allow them to do all that stuff. So
yeah, and you know,
we'll just have to, I guess, wait and see.
Good point on that, DC. Especially we're going to get to in the second part here on the emails and the leaks and things like that. Especially we saw some of the Xbox brass said in emails about Nintendo. Really, if I worked for Nintendo, I would have been like, I don't know how I'd want to do business now with them after seeing the lack of confidence in what is actually one of the best-selling consoles of this generation in the Switch. You know, I'm going to go to Eric Jackson here. Eric, you know, one of the questions I kind of have for you is twofold, because I don't want this. I'm going to ask everybody, everybody put your pitchforks and knives down on the console war for a second. Eric, is this good for us? Everybody in the chat, everybody listening later, everybody on the panel. We are the consumers. We are the gamers. Are these types of acquisitions that are happening? Because let's be honest, the floodgates are now open. I would expect that if Sony had something in writing in the works, we'll see it. If you have Tencent that had something in the works, we're going to see it. The gates are open now, E. What does this do for us? And guys in the chat, listen to what Eric's got to say here. This is kind of important. This is more about the fact of us. Are we going to be paying more for less quality, or are we going to be actually getting more IPs brought back from the dead because Microsoft did do this? E, where's your feelings on it?
Oh no, I agree with the guys as far as I've been saying for the longest. I don't know where people are getting this idea that all these dormant IP are going to all of a sudden start magically popping in and showing up, because the fact of the matter is the teams that are there with Activision now are still the teams that they moved over to work on Call of Duty, which is going to be the most important thing for them. So I don't see how that changes, right? Yeah. And to put a game back into development, a new IP takes a certain amount of money versus signing a developer with a game already made to come into Game Pass. So they're on the hook to develop a game to go into Game Pass. And yeah, Microsoft has a lot of money. People love throwing it in your face until they don't do well. Then they're the underdog. I don't know how the $1 trillion company is the underdog, but people love doing that. But the fact of the matter is there's a ceiling for every company on what they're willing to do, how much they're willing to spend. You don't just keep throwing money out there. You know, there has to be some return on it. And like you said, we'll get into this from some of those leaks on where their mindsets may be around a lot of this. But we're seeing at every point, every subscription service going up in price. Some, you can argue, have better quality than others. Some have a stagnant quality, but they're still going up in price. So we're going to definitely, as a subscription service, see the same thing from a Game Pass, right? But on the front of what they may do with Activision, I don't know where people also get this lofty idea that overnight, you know, they acquire them on a Friday and then by Monday, all their problems are fixed. You know, people keep throwing this thing around where it's like, well, they're going to be better off under Microsoft. And it's like, yeah, but that's a lot of redundancy that they have to bring in and now figure out. So not everybody's going to be happy that this acquisition is happening when they're being handed a pink slip.
That's a really good point,
thank you for your time and service, but hey, we have 3 people doing the same thing. One of you has to go.
So, Mooch, let me ask you a question. I want to ask you a question, Mooch, and I'm going to give you guys a restaurant reference because it's CrossFire, and we're talking to Mooch. We got to do food.
Yeah, we got to eat.
Here.
We got to eat.
Yeah, we gotta eat. Yeah, I gotta go get beer too. So let me tell Mooch. So you own a restaurant, right? And you have your menu and all this other stuff. Then some guy walks in there, suit and tie, or maybe he has a gaming shirt on, and he walks in and goes, I'm buying your whole restaurant. I'm buying the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping everything the same. Prices, restaurant, everything the same. The silverware, the napkins, the everything's gonna be the same for the next 10 years and all that stuff. As a owner, are you just like, well, wait a second. Like, so why are you spending $70 billion to buy my restaurant and everything's staying the same? Everything where it is, the placemats where it is, the napkins, the forks, the knives, the silverware, the chef, everything stays the same for the next decade.
Yeah.
What are you gonna be there going? Well, what's in it for you? Why are you spending all this money just to keep everything where it is? Like, what's in it for you? Like, aren't you gonna ask that question? And I don't think we have the answer to what is in it for Microsoft for spending this amount of money, this amount of court and documents, and selling all their secrets and showing everything that they got.
Yeah.
And willing to bend over backwards, selling arms to Ubisoft and Boosteroid and just giving it to anybody who's breathing. NVIDIA, take our cloud. Like the desperation there. Doing all this, spending all that money, and everything stays the same. What is in it for them? What is the okie dokie? Wouldn't you say the same in a restaurant? You'd be like, well, wait, there's something got to be in it for you. Like, you're not going to buy my restaurant, spend all this money, keep everything the same. Like, aren't you going to question that?
Well, you do question it. Go ahead, BG.
I want to say that, like, yeah, to me, consolidation, like, is just like when you ask the question, is it good for us? I think the Bethesda acquisition is good, right? Because people like try to make it very simple. Like, it's not like, you know, like all acquisitions are created equal, and how you acquire them, it's all the same. Nothing matters. And I'm like, I don't understand how people think that way. You know, like it matters how you do it, who you acquire. All that matters. Is one thing can't just be completely bad across the board. Like the nuance and the details of it matters. Like, I don't think this Activision acquisition does, in my opinion, really does anything good for gamers. I don't think it does anything particularly bad. I think it just is, right? People celebrating. I still personally don't really see what difference this makes, because like I said, with Activision, what are you about to get from them that you under Microsoft that you weren't getting before? Nothing. I don't think you're going to get anything new. Right? Bethesda, I think the Bethesda deal was good because Bethesda was actually in trouble, right? Activision just had moral issues, like having Bill Cosby, Cosby room on the wall. That's you know, that's a culture issue. That has
like
nothing to do
Ninja
with,
Theory, BG. Like, they were in trouble.
Exactly. It had nothing to do with
in exile. The dude was retiring.
So that, you know, that and I hate that you can't have that conversation. That, like, you know,
you wouldn't say that if Sony was like doing. It's like what does that whataboutism have to do with actually thinking logically? Because I said a lot of dudes who kind of like do what BG is saying are dudes who have been around. like a lot of older guys, you've seen what corporations do when they hold too many cards. No one's asking the question about holding too many publishers. Like BG said, saving a dev, right? Saving a dev that was on the way out. I'm all for it. Hey, that's talent. Acquire them. They're almost out of here. You threw them a lifeline. That's beautiful. But why is it a problem to ask the question about buying publishers and somebody trying to literally change the market by holding the publishers? A mega corporation, and people go on this thing of where they talk to us on Twitter, so they're friendly.
Yeah.
Okay, that has nothing to do with it. And they break, we break bread with them, and it's like, here's the question you have to ask yourself is, when someone like a Phil Spencer says this is going to be great for gamers, and people pick up that bucket and carry that water for him and tell you this is going to be great for gamers, and you ask them, why is this great for gamers? Well, this is going to be great for me with Game Pass, because it's going to save me money. How is this great for gamers all over? Well, this is going to be great for Game Pass. That's all they can tell you. No one can give you a straight answer as to why this benefits everybody. Why is this good for gamers?
Eric, you make a good point. I want to welcome the great David Faulkner's here, as well as the great Gaming Forte have joined us. Welcome, guys. I do want to say this much. Eric, you make a good point. But when it comes down to it, and we've talked about it day in and out, David, I'll go to you because Eric sparks this question. That is the number one thing we hear from the one side is, well, it's going in Game Pass, so I like a lot of people say, I'm playing it for, someone told me this today, I'm playing it for relatively free. I was like, what? It's not free. First of all,
at all.
Right? The here we are, before they even got the deal done, they've already raised the price of Ultimate Game Pass. And there's rumors, it's a rumor, so I'm saying that out loud here. It's a rumor. David, there's a rumor that they're saying that if these ABK, the Call of Duty games would go into another tier or a more expensive, or maybe only be in the Ultimate tier. It won't be included in the console edition and the other edition. You'd have to get the Ultimate. So, and we see Amazon Prime today now putting ads in the regular subscription, and now you'd have to pay extra to get the ads out. So go ahead, Brap, but I want to hear your point and David's.
Real quick, this is called enshittification. I encourage everyone to Google enshittification and choke point capitalism. But this is what you're seeing. This is the start of enshittification in the gaming industry. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Falk.
I appreciate that, Brap. Everybody got a homework assignment on CrossFire. Brap, I love it.
Yeah,
David.
no, I'm serious.
It's
It's a fascinating thing that we've seen with, like, we had Ramon Terrell on, and he talked about the impact that Amazon had on book publishing and authors.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, it wasn't good. And so anyone like pom-pomming consolidation, look, I don't have an issue with consolidation when it's smaller companies or when it's a company that's financially struggling. Activision meets none of those things. It wasn't. They weren't financially struggling. They're a top 6 publisher. And look, I said this a long time ago. People are like, "Oh, you're just coping, Brap. That's copium and cap." It's like they're fucking. It's like talking to fucking 5-year-olds. Like they can't formulate a thought outside saying the word cap or copium. It's like, no, like there's tangible proof. You look at other industries where we've had mass consolidations of the big players in those industries. Those consolidations have not benefited consumers.
Yeah.
Well, Brap, here's the thing. It's like it's fine. Let's burn the whole thing down. Let's change the whole game. Let's change the market. So I have the opportunity to dunk on another nobody on Twitter. That felt great. You know what I'm saying? That's what it comes down to. Most of the times it's just people want to be able to like help.
Clout.
Yeah, it's the clout. And it's like you're really not thinking about what this could mean to you as a consumer. The only thing you can trust a corporation to do is to do corporation type shit.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn how good they try to act. And we're gonna get there, Mooch, again, with like Phil's statement coming out there and like throwing cold water on the fire. Say, hey, those plans have changed. You just wait until you see what we're about to do. We're about to switch it up. And it's like, yeah, because it means something to him to have the good guy like persona.
Yeah.
They love having that good guy persona.
He's that Mickey Mouse. Oh, boy.
Because that community doesn't hold them accountable.
Well, they say they do.
And he finesses them with that hey, I'm the good guy. It's like, no, he's a, like someone's like, oh, he knows us by our first names. Okay, like, I mean, like if that's what gets you out of bed in the morning, God bless you.
Now.
God bless you. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
It might be time.
He bought me breakfast.
Yeah, it might be. He said
I'm
hello to me.
surprised you don't have Phil Arazzi going after him, taking pictures of him.
Phil Arazzi. He followed me on Twitter. Oh my God! It's like, why? Like, why is that
So Let me ask
kinda
Carl a
like-
question.
Go
Let me
ahead,
ask y'all a
Forte.
question.
Forte, what's up, bro?
What up,
What's up?
though?
What's
What's good,
up,
Forte?
Only question I need to ask y'all is, most people in this world, when it comes to just purchasing and just their decision-making process, do you think most people are for what you can get now, so short-term gains versus long-term? Which one you think most people are about?
I think that
Short
depends on
term,
the
right?
consumer.
Short term.
I think
Short term.
short
They
term
wanna
is
see
what
it.
you're saying. Yeah.
They want
Yeah.
they want to see, they want instant gratification on the things that they have right now. So short term, in the eyes of Activision and the purchase of this going through, is yes, Game Pass, day and date, Call of Duty in there. Don't have to pay for the game up front because it's something you're getting now for a benefit that you don't see a problem with. You don't see a problem with it right now. And then we're gonna get to the emails and stuff later on with the leaks and everything. But what is the opposite for corporations? Short-term or long-term success?
Long term for them.
Yeah.
So what did Phil Spencer say about Nintendo? We're willing to play the long game with them. They're sitting on money. They don't need us. We can wait to get to where we want to get.
No, he
in
didn't say
order
they
to
don't
find-
need us. He said
no,
they don't realize
no,
their success off the
no,
thing.
listen. When he
knows better.
basically said they don't need us because he talked about how much money they have. What is the one thing Microsoft has more than anybody else? Money.
That's why he's telling them to buy stock.
They can't offer them the thing that they can offer most people. They can't just throw money at them and say, "Hey, this is going to be beneficial."
They're gonna
for
send
you,
Kodak
and
over
we
to
do this."
Nintendo, do some grab ass and get their
Right,
stock
exactly.
down. Then
So-
Phil go over there.
So the biggest thing comes down to is, yes, does it hurt? Does it hurt right now? It doesn't really hurt right now because that's why, like you just said, why are they keeping everything the same? Because right now, let's keep everything the same because we're going to change it up in 10 years. 10 years, they're basically banking on the fact that everything that Activision has is still going to be beneficial to them in 10 years from now. It might be bigger, it may still be the same.
Right.
But if it's the same, guess what they can do at that point? They got consumer mindshare around the game. Just think about what happened with Call of Duty, just for the fact that it was tied to PlayStation all last generation. We saw.
Yeah,
we
but
saw,
do you think that mindshare helping with Starfield? Like, you think that was considered an Xbox game because they bought Bethesda?
Because Starfield isn't Call of Duty. Call of Duty is something that everybody.
But it was an
plays.
Xbox game from a publisher purchase, and I don't think Starfield was looked at as an Xbox game, like an Xbox franchise.
No, it ain't got nothing to do with it. Was Call of Duty an Xbox franchise during the 360 generation? It wasn't.
Because of the exclusive map packs. That's why.
Exactly. So what happened? Over the course of last generation when Call of Duty flipped over and Activision
and Sony got it.
And Sony got
the exclusive map packs. But the thing is, they
And
can't
that
do that exclusivity now in the next 10 years.
Exactly.
To make it.
What happens after that, though?
Phil said 2027, so I don't know what 10 years.
That's what I'm saying. What happens after that? So that's the thing. You say everything stays the same now, but once they got mind share, everybody's basically saying that Call of Duty's in Game Pass. You can play Call of Duty on your refrigerator if you want to, or whatever ecosystem they want you to deem to play it in. And they have the opportunity to do whatever they want to do with Call of Duty after 10 years, except in streaming, because it's still going to be tied to Ubisoft for another 5.
15, yeah.
For 15, but they have the option to do whatever they want for the next 10 after 10 years. That's when you see what this deal really does. They're banking on the fact that they hope that Call of Duty is just as good as it is now.
I gotta say,
10 years from now.
I gotta say, Forte.
It's not about Call of Duty though.
No,
it's mostly about mobile.
No,
we're just talking about Call of Duty because that's the thing that everybody wants to talk about.
This thing is
way more than that. It's way
this
more
thing is
than that.
100%. This thing really is. If you look at the long game,
Yeah.
it's 100% mobile. And you look at what Phil said in the leaked emails. Like he talked about like creating an ecosystem, and I forget what it was. Compute something rather the other, but anyhow, use some technical term to describe what they're doing. But basically, like they want to create an experience that's equal across the board. So whether you're playing on a mobile device, whether you're playing on a PC, whether you're playing on a console, those experiences are going to be exactly the same, regardless.
Yeah.
And that's what they're and mobile's the big push here. I mean, I think King. No one talks about King Candy Crush, but that's the big get for Microsoft. I mean, that's ultimately going to pay them, I think, the most dividends. I don't think people are going to like necessarily jump ship to play Call of Duty per se if that becomes exclusive. I'm not saying that it's zero.
Not right now.
But I don't even think long term. I think that people may move on to something else. Call of Duty may not even be the big thing in 10 years either.
Well,
There could
that's
be
why we
something else.
said it depends on what it is. But I also said that's why we're
But I-
talking about
but I
because
don't think-
mobile's the one thing that they get now that they don't have to wait for. Once
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
once mobile
Mobile's
hits, they get that no matter what. It's,
mobile.
Yeah,
Mobile's
exactly.
the big thing. Yeah,
This is the
mobile's
big
the
thing, yeah.
multiple's the big
So-
play for them
so
to
I-
get the
Mobile
Xbox
BRAP,
ecosystem and gaming on the mobile platforms.
that's definitely it. But there was something I was actually, when I was just doing a lot of reading earlier this morning on some of the articles, I actually, what Forte said was when I looked at the 15-year deal, yes, definitely King and mobile is where they're going to capitalize day one on immediately. But I do think Forte makes a point when he says that they're banking on that 10 years to be able to, once those contracts are expired that they have in place right now, that's what they're really banking on as far as these IP. David, you hear BRAP, you hear Forte. You are the new deemed Twitter accountant and professor. You now be known as Professor David Faulkner, by the way. Professor, what is it?
PhD, by the way.
That's correct, Professor.
Dr. Falke.
So, when it comes down to it, David, what do you really think when you hear about this? Is this something that you think that does Forte make a point that this is a bit of a gamble on the IP front for 10 years? And of course, BRAP mentioning King and mobile is definitely where they're going to capitalize on day one. Did we lose David?
Oh, there's merits to. Hello.
There you are,
Yeah,
Dave.
we
Got
hear
you now.
Can you
We
hear
got
me?
Yep, you're good
Yeah,
now.
we hear you.
Oh, good. Sorry. The joys of Australian internet. Look, there's positives on both of those arguments. Like business has to look at the short game, the long game, the ultimate returns. What's best now, what's best then. There's a multitude of things that they got to look at and consider. So, I just one of the things that I find interesting about the whole thing is that Microsoft took the option of effectively a divestment hybrid to offload the streaming stuff to Ubisoft, knowing that they couldn't touch, and it's in the agreement apparently. I shouldn't say apparently, it's in the agreement. They can't own any kind of stake in any way, shape, or form in Ubisoft for the first 10 years of that 15-year deal. So that's off the table. But that they chose to go that route rather than challenge the CMA and the FTC. It's quite an interesting outcome. So obviously there's a long game play there, but the short-term impact, of course, gets you the mobile impact. There was a comment made a little bit earlier about Call of Duty, Candy Crush, and the World of Warcraft. No, what's the other?
Yeah, World of Warcraft.
Yeah, is it World of Warcraft?
Yes,
The
it is.
PC.
Mhm.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So those three games every year account for 80% of the total revenue for Activision. 3 games. Do you really think? Does anyone who actually think that's got 2 brain cells that can bash together, do they actually think that Microsoft is going to chip in any more cash to pull people out of those 3 game development teams, or bring more people on to do new IP? There's no benefit there. Those 3 alone are going to bring in $6+ billion, provided $7+ billion, provided that you can keep them on PlayStation, or you can keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. So there's the landscape change is negligible in the immediate future. Microsoft made it very clear, their CFO, not the Xbox CFO, the Microsoft big boss CFO, guy that sits up right next to Satcher, said Activision must be profitable. The Activision acquisition must be profitable day one. What does profitable mean? It means it's increased the earnings per share to the shareholder. That means they've got to make some serious cash out of it. They can't do it if they cut PlayStation off. They can't do it if they have to divest it to another company completely. They need to get something back from it. So what they've done to get the deal over with the CMA is they're sacrificing the medium and long term in 10-year deal, financial drip feed, so to speak, from the licensing arrangements.
Yeah.
For the sake of being able to actually account for the full amount of revenue for Activision immediately. That has a big impact. Now, if they try and cut out PlayStation and strip out a heap of other competitors and then undercut the value of the sales because they pump it straight into Game Pass. They've got to backfill that void. Otherwise, they won't hit the earnings per share target that they've been told they have to hit. Now, there's a multitude of things that can happen between now and then, with the leaks in this 2027, will they still be in gaming, all the rest of it. That plan was built before they went and chased Activision, or before they even tried with Activision. But we also know from the leaks that Game Pass subscriptions stalled, but we don't know what the metric is for them to meet to continue on. There's a heap of unknowns in this. All it does is create more questions than answers. But with the ABK thing coming across the line, there's merits on both sides there. There's a short-term immediate benefit. There's a long-term benefit. There's a long-term game, a long game being played here. But the competition or the other competitors in the marketplace aren't just standing still. And be mindful that the ultimate goal of all these companies is to make money. They don't care if you buy the product first or if you buy the product last. If you're buying the product, they're making money. So the whole idea of who's top, who's bottom, who's the rest of it doesn't matter.
So David,
to anyone that's consuming the game, it's make the damn things available to us.
David, let me just throw a bit of a curveball in there. I see what you're saying, and I think a lot of people online would or on Twitter or in the chat would agree with you. But when it comes down to it, if I make a product, right, I'm making a widget, and I'm going to sell it to you, and I'm going to sell it to BG, and I'm selling it myself. Are they kind of carving a certain situation here where they're going to put this product onto their service day and date, right? For what I know they got rid of the dollar deal, but you can still play these for $10.99 or respectively right now. I think it's $16.99, something along those lines.
Yes.
But yet, if I'm selling my widget, I'm giving my widget away for $16 a month on a subscription plan. But I say, David, when I'm selling my product to you and BG and selling it at your wholesale store, it's going to be $70. How does that necessarily reflect, well, for the product, the widget itself, or they just don't care?
Oh, that's why I say you've got to be careful about undermining your sales. If you're going to sell it for X amount of dollars in a subscription service that's dirt cheap, well, you're not going to make the money sell the cubic amounts of dollars you would otherwise selling it. There's some key metrics that get overlooked with this. Microsoft has a shit ton of money, yes, but after this deal, they won't have a shit ton of money. They'll be on par with the amount of money that Sony's got to spend in terms of cash reserves. This thing's going to suck a huge amount of money out of their bank account. But that's beside the point, because most of what's available that they would be able to go and buy up if they wanted to, they can still afford. But so can Sony, so can Nintendo, so can Tencent, NetEase, Ubisoft, EA, Take-Two. It's back to pretty much a level playing field of who can buy who. But that's one side of it. If they went out and bought a heap of other publishers and then stuck all those, that have really healthy profit and losses and really healthy financials, stuck them in the Game Pass and eroded those financials back to a point of they can't even be self-sufficient. Just for the gaming segment, and the gaming segment sits near the bottom of the totem pole in Microsoft, do you think that business process computing and intelligent cloud, who are screaming for money to develop their AI options and upgrade their server banks and their cloud servers and their switches and all this other stuff, do you really think those divisions in Microsoft are going to allow that to happen? I don't think so. I'm surprised that they haven't.
No, fucking, because they're P&L centers, number one. That's why. Yeah.
Exactly.
If they're going to keep things there to make their money back, then how are they going to leverage to grow? Because they got to grow and make their money back at the same time. And the way to grow is by putting stuff exclusively or putting stuff only on their services. But they can't do that because they got to make their money back, keep it everywhere. So how are they going to grow and do that at the same time?
That's the golden question, I guess, because the leak said that they got the 25 million subs at whatever date it was, and then Phil said in his testimony or his comments there that it stalled and effectively not grown for 8 to 9 months, and we don't know what's happened since. We don't know if Starfield shifted the needle on that at all. But Xbox makes. You can piece together. Xbox makes or has made this year so far to the end of March. Was it the end of June? Sorry, to the end of June.
End of June, yeah.
Over $9 billion. Yeah, over $9 billion, not from subscriptions or hardware sales. They've made $9 billion from selling games and microtransactions. That's not something to be sneezed at. $9 billion.
That's right.
So
Okay, is that Xbox?
the push to go into subscriptions? That's Microsoft Gaming. So that includes ZeniMax.
That's also including that. And I'd have to go back and talk to Game Logic about this, but he actually did some digging in their financials and said that maybe majority of that, and I could be wrong. I don't want to misquote him. He's not here on the show. But I'm just going to say some of that. I'll just say some of that because I don't want to misquote him. But some of that is actually game related products that are B2B and not necessarily B2C.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so a lot of it is B2B and not B2C.
You know, one thing though, I do think that we need to do.
The end result.
One thing I'm saying is my history of Microsoft and their products and what they've done. Them making money is really not a good indication of the success of something because they have their kind of metrics of what they're going to look for. If it's not where it needs to be, they will shut it down. You know, look at just what they did. Panos Panay left. After I remember his presentations, he was an incredible presenter with the Surface as a platform.
Yep.
And now the Surface is kind of stagnated and he's gone. He left because they will not let him innovate on the Surface. They just want to keep it where it is and just kind of leave it as that. Mixer was doing fine. It was the people were there. It was 3%. It wasn't getting huge, but they spent all that money in buying Ninja and Shroud to inject people to subscribe to it, and they shut it down because it wasn't where it needs to be. They're making money everywhere. They're making money, but they shut it down. So like them just making money in gaming, I don't think is a great indicator because they're also spending the money. We don't know what the spending and the making is, and the way they operate is that they want to implement their DNA into everything. And if it doesn't work, they will then pivot and shift. Think how many pivots and shifts we've done. It used to be the Windows ecosystem, Windows 10 store and Xbox store, one world to live in all. Then all of a sudden, that didn't work. And they said, guess what? We're paying Steam and here's 30% royalties to Steam.
That's right.
Now we're out of the Xbox ecosystem because it was one world. Now they stepped out of that. Now cloud, they're going to be cloud gaming, Game Pass everywhere, 2 billion gamers. They just sold all their cloud stuff to Ubisoft to run everything and to do it all. Like they are willing to change and pivot at everything. So like, I just think that it's very hard to see how successful any of this stuff is going to be. And just by them, I'm just kind of tired of the whole, they're spending money, they're making money. And that means it's successful. The problem is if they're making so much money and they're making $9 billion and stuff, where are the goddamn games? Where are the studios from 2018 with their games coming out already and working on their second ones?
Yeah.
Where are the games if they're doing so well? And that's my problem. If they're doing well without releasing games, that sucks for us because I don't want them to do well without releasing games because then that's useless to me.
Jazz, I'm glad you said what you said though, and I want to ask this question real quick to BG. BG, because Jazz made a point. They left. They bought Mixer. They left Mixer. They got into the mobile phone business. They left that.
Well, Nokia, the whole goddamn company, Nokia.
which was massive. They bought them, left that. Now we're seeing. I even see some people that are in the know that work for certain Windows publications saying, "My God, what's going to happen to the Surface products now?" Okay, with that gentleman leaving that Jez just mentioned as well. So. BG, my question to you is, why do you think the media, I mean, when I say, I don't just mean the games media, I'm talking the media overall. It doesn't seem like anybody's worried about the smaller developers that are going to be left out there hanging when these big companies are coming in and buying everybody out, right? It makes it harder for indie sales, indie developers out there. Why is the media pom-pomming this when generally, and not asking the questions Jez just said? Well, geez, this is a great deal for Microsoft, but looking at your history and purchases, things haven't really gone swimmingly multiple times, especially in the gaming market. Why would they feel so comfortable now, BG? You know what I mean? Like you see what I see on Twitter. Everybody is pretty much, or not everybody, don't speak in absolutes on the internet, but 80%, let's go 80% are backing this up and they're all excited. You see people in the media being like, yes, it's finally over. And yeah, this is great for Game Pass. So BG, is there any thought on that why when you see these other products that they bought failed, now all of a sudden this one's supposed to be great?
Well, I don't know if it's most of the media. I think it's the fans, yeah, and the the media who are also Xbox fans, but I think it's came under its a fair share of scrutiny, a lot of scrutiny from people just questioning it. And should this be happening? But yeah, I think it's just the fans, right? I don't necessarily think the media has fully supported it. I think they've been a little, pretty skeptical of it. I can't say that I've seen like the actual media just all for it and all on board. I haven't seen that. I've seen the fans be completely, extreme to the point where they don't care. They admit they don't care about the long-term results, or they don't care about what happens 10 years from now to Xbox or the gaming industry. They can get something relatively soon or right now. They care about the right now. So they don't care about the ramifications,
Mhm.
if there are any, the consequences of consolidation.
Mhm.
That doesn't matter to them. To them, getting these games into Game Pass relatively soon, however long it takes, to them is
Mhm.
worth it. They don't care about anything long term.
Yeah.
That gain, which is in my kind of estimation, the only gain that people really get is certain games into Game Pass. To them, all of that is worth it. Nothing else matters.
No, BG, and I'm glad you said that. The great Jeff Grubb says, wait, I want to hear more about how this makes things harder for indies. So, Jeff, this is something that came from a few of the smaller indie developers, and we heard it, I believe, on a few other podcasts that were saying something along the lines of, if this hypothetical move of continuing to go through subscription services becomes the future, Jeff, right? And let's just like talk in speculation. All of a sudden, Microsoft acquires an EA, right? Or they go down the line, they grab another big publisher. Now, if that's the way people are forced to game, right, to go through these subscriptions, or not just Game Pass, but maybe PlayStation Plus or whatever things may become, well, then these smaller indies are saying, well, wait a minute, you got to buy our game for $70. And Microsoft has said no to certain indie games that have applied to get into Game Pass, and they won't let them into Game Pass. So now they're fighting because they can't get into these subscription services. And they're out there with no real marketing costs. They have none of that stuff budgeted into their accounts. They can't do the same marketing. They can't get the same attention. And they're at $70 out there on a store shelf or digital store, right? Do you see how that kind of makes things, I think, a bit more, it could make it more of a task or more of a hurdle for smaller indies.
The thing I've always seen for indies is
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead, DC. Go ahead, DC.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say the thing I've been saying for a long time is Microsoft. The thing that helped Game Pass a lot was they had to go out and make a whole bunch of deals because they didn't have a lot of first-party content. So that's why they, boosted a lot of those smaller titles up to the front. Now that they have Activision, now that they have Bethesda, and they have all these projects
what happens to the
planned,
small games?
they don't
DC?
have that incentive anymore to really go out to these smaller developers and prop them up on their store. I think people will only care about those larger games versus maybe give a chance to some of the smaller indie titles. But maybe if they release at the perfect time, they still might get a little buzz for them.
Right, and that's where I'm kind of
There's,
going with that. They're not going to get right now. You have Lies of P, and you have Death's Door, and that's what Xbox is promoting.
Party animals.
Mooch.
Then once they go ahead, E. Once they you know what I'm saying, E, once they start getting
You probably
Activision,
remember, like I was on here at one point. I brought this up and I said, if I was like a smaller dev, I would be very concerned about what the subscription services all around mean, or what they're going to do, because years ago we already heard developers say how hard it is to get your game seen on a storefront. Because there's so much competition, there's so much that can push you down to where your game isn't even visible. But now you have to compete with the subscription service of this thing that they've cut a deal with. They've made it into the service. Maybe their game made it in, yours didn't, whether it's a AA, AAA, or a high profile indie like a Sea of Stars or something like that. So now you didn't make it into the Game Pass program, or you didn't make it on the PS Plus. So now what? The minute that consumer logs in, what's the first thing thrown in their face, especially on the Xbox storefront? It's Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass, everything that's featured in Game Pass, and it's a really hard place to see new discovery.
Exactly.
I would be hella nervous as a new dev, or as an indie dev.
I think for right now, they may have reason to in the immediacy, like with subscription services popping up. I get them maybe being a little bit worried, but I actually believe the industry will self-correct itself, right? So in the long term, I'm not really that worried for them. I think that if subscription services is not what ends up being right for gaming, I think the industry will reflect that, and it'll be rejected. If it is the future, then it'll be accepted, and that'll be our future, whether we like it or not. But
So
if it's
BG
not,
BG
the industry will naturally reject it, and I think things will regulate and
BG, do you
heal
think
itself.
do you think we're seeing seeing that already, BG, right now?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was
Game
about to
Pass
say it,
came, Game Pass came out
Yeah,
in
I already see
2017.
fatigue. I already see
Yeah.
like
Subscription fatigue.
not only in gaming, just people are starting to be fatigued in subscription services
Overall.
across the board.
Yes.
And the prices
So-
went up and everything.
Yeah. So my thing is like, I know like some people are against subscription services. I'm not necessarily a fan of them for gaming because the way I buy games is just doesn't really offer me a value. I think just like everything else, we see trends in gaming all the time and things that have came and completely died off to the point where we forgot about them.
Yeah.
Like the loot boxes and stuff, like the what was that thing? What was that thing where we had to like, even if you had online,
Oh, the
you had to,
online
like,
pass?
put-
The
the
$10.
online passes.
Yeah,
EA did that
People
thing.
forgot
That was
about
EA.
those. Yeah, that was an insane thing that happened. That existed for a while in gaming, and now it's completely gone. It's kind of like a afterthought. We don't even remember it like that because the industry just corrected itself. And I just think like subscription services will, it'll be the same thing. It's going to be judged by the industry, especially since the people act like subscription services are like the common thing. It's still the less popular thing. Most publishers still are mainly selling their games a la carte, just with outside of a subscription service. They may put it in somebody else's eventually, after a while when it's been out. But the preferred way in the industry right now is still to sell your games. So, yeah.
No,
And that's what's selling, too.
Some appeal.
Go ahead,
That's
David.
what's selling. Go to Piscatella.
Sorry,
They're selling. The big games are.
Yeah, there's a couple of quick points. I promise I won't go on another rant. The number one yardstick for any company that's selling something is sales, and it doesn't matter whether you're selling subscriptions, whether you repeat or the rest of it, or whether you're selling the product direct. The ultimate yardstick is a customer. The customer doesn't like something, they won't buy it, and then the customer will force the change in the business strategy. And as several people just pointed out, subscription fatigue. It's plateaued, it's capped out. They can't seem to attract anyone new. There's limits on what people will cop in terms of price rises and that. But just to touch back on what the question that Jeff Grubb asked around how does it affect indies, it's probably not the best example. The rumors or the comments made.
Is he buying for anybody else? Or
Yeah,
just me?
David, you're
Yeah,
botting.
yeah,
David.
no, he's
I was
botting.
hoping
That's
it
a good
would've-
segue into Clout.
David, you're botting. Yeah,
Well,
he
let's
is.
talk about
pass.
David, you're gonna have to
David.
start.
And the condition
David, you're gonna have to start
is
over.
was-
You were botting the whole time, David.
Microsoft done sent the agents out on
Yeah,
it.
work
they
on
got-
Series S.
Now let's talk about how Cloud's
breaking it
the
down.
future and the internet's
Can you hear
great.
me now?
Let's talk about that now.
David, you'll have to start that over again, David. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, the internet.
Maybe
See,
pop.
guys, this is the
man.
cloud-only future you want.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can
you
hear
can't
me
play
now?
on G Cloud right now.
Go, David, can we
Can't
hear
even
you?
be in
Go
the
ahead.
Discord.
Hold on a second, guys. Let me try. David, try and say something again.
Can
No.
you hear me now?
Yes, that's a lot better, David.
Hello?
If you don't
There
mind
it is.
starting over again, because I did want to hear your point.
Right. Sorry, apologies for that. The internet in Australia is great today. Yes, so I'll go back right to the start. The consumer or the customer is the main yardstick of whether a business strategy is worked or not. So if with the comments that had been made by a lot of people on this panel about, subscription fatigue and they've sort of hit their limits. They can't seem to push past certain numbers, no matter what they're doing. Some of the subscription services are consolidating within each other, or they're just ceasing to operate. And they're to the point where they have to start lifting prices because they can't continue. They're not sustainable to continue in the method that they have been. Those price rises will obviously be reflected as being accepted or not by the customers when they either buy them or they don't. But in terms of the comment that Jeff made about the indie developers, an example that I can give, it's not the best one, but it's the first one that comes to mind, is if you believe the comments made about Larian Studios with Baldur's Gate 3 being offered $5 million to go into Game Pass and being told it has to work on the Series S as well, how are those guys going to turn around and make another game? They'd effectively go bankrupt just on that deal alone. So, and that's an isolated point. However, if you extrapolate that out across, multiple publishers all of a sudden disappearing in the short to medium term, if EA and Ubisoft and other ones get bought up, where do the indies go to get their games published?
Right.
They'd have to go to the platform holder. And if they have to go to the platform holder, then they've got no bargaining power. They just have to accept whatever deal comes.
Right.
And if PlayStation stops taking an interest in indies, or Nintendo stops making it an easy and cheap platform to develop for indies, and it doesn't have to be the two-man team working in his basement. There's studios that have got 100+ people in them that are considered indie developers.
That's right.
If they don't have somewhere to go where they can get a deal that allows them to continue, what's the point? And the concern is in the short to medium term that you just have a mass exodus of skill from the industry, and the backfilling of that skill in the medium to long term, that's where you get long, protracted periods of just dryness and rubbish for the consumer. You might get a couple of good games here and there, but then you're just solely relying on the big guys to provide you with your content. Yep. And you'll end up paying for it.
And that's the thing, and I think that and it does hurt the creativity and access to those platforms. And that's what I was trying to say. I mean, don't get me wrong. The one thing I always say is that because whenever you say anything, everybody wants it. Like you were saying, Forte said it earlier, short term and long term. So everyone's just thinking short term. Short term, I save a couple extra dollars. Short term, this is good for the third place team. But what I always ask people on the panel and in the chat, and to Jeff Grubb, Jeff, we've had some great conversations, is what is the cause and effect of moves that happen of this nature? And this isn't, people are saying it, this is not Microsoft's last buy. It's not like they're done. They're going to acquire more studios. So what ends up happening here? Do you lose a little bit of that creative gene that's out there in the workforce? Are they not going to be allowed on the platform? Because Microsoft's going to say, well, the only way I'm going to let you on, once they're all mighty and powerful with Game Pass, is if you do what we say. In the case of Larian Studios, I need to have parity. I need the S and the X to do this. And it was like at the end, they had to make a bargaining chip to say, listen, this game's doing great. It's going to go on PlayStation 5. I want it. But if it's a situation where Microsoft's holding all the cards, or Sony's holding all the cards, this isn't just about Microsoft. I don't want Sony to acquire 1 million companies, and I don't want Nintendo to acquire 1 million companies. I mean, this goes across the board. It's a slippery slope, and we don't know what's going to affect us as gamers down the road and what's going to affect indie developers down the road. If you don't agree with that, that's fine, but it is a reasonable thought, and it is a valuable discussion to have, I believe. I do want to have a couple super chats here and then move on to the leaks that happened here. So shout out to the great WoolleyGamer. He says here, shout out to my good friend Fauky and Jez. So that's great to see the great WoolleyGamer. He's also up late. Forget Me Not says, funny how the corporation with no culture buys the company with historically bad culture. Remember, Microsoft put out Bleeding Edge when they thought Ninja Theory for Game Pass fodder. So shout out to Forget Me Not. I understand what he's trying to say there. The great Andy Hart, he says, cloud gaming may be the future, but not for at least 10 years. The internet infrastructure is not ready yet. Andy, we've been saying that for a long time since I've been podcasting. The internet is getting better and better and reaching more and more across the world. And clearly, if Microsoft is making these types of investments, they must feel at some point that the internet is good enough to where it's going to make them their dividends. The great Rob Jones says, Mooch, hope you're all good, mate. Have a great weekend. Rob, thank you so much. The great Royal Boyle, another New York Mets fan. We have to stick together, Royal. There's not many of us out there. What's good, Crossfire panel chat? Just here to say, always show support for the man Mooch. And over 400 watching. Hit the damn like button. Stay safe, y'all. Thank you, Royal. I appreciate that. And the great TrueWiddy's here. He says, thing is, most want to be dominant in the areas they are in. Mixer mobile wasn't dominant. So, pardon me. TrueWiddy, I think he says he uses voice to text. Thing is, most want to be dominant in the areas they are in. Mixer Mobile wasn't dominant where they are now. If Xbox doesn't get dominant soon, Xbox going. We saw and that's actually a great lead in for the leaks, where we saw if Game Pass doesn't reach this number by this year or whatever it was, 100 million subscribers by 2030, they'll be gone. When DC, I'm going to go to you here first. I got yelled at, by the way. DC, shout out to Ayo in the chat. He's like, Mooch, you bring DC Gaming on here, he's not talking. Crossfire, you just chime in whenever you want. DC is no stranger. He knows. DC, what do you think when you hear things like what TrueWiddy's saying and the leaked emails and that kind of thing? What's going on? The new Xbox, I guess I'll pose you with the first one. The new Series X refresh. This is one of the leaked emails. All digital, 2 terabyte, Wi-Fi, $499. No change in performance or power increase. Let's get into some of these leaks here. Is this something that you would be interested in as a consumer? Would you upgrade your current Xbox for this? Being the Great Gaming Forte had some discussions last week on some of these topics. But what do you think, DC?
For this one, I probably would not. I kind of thought it was weird that they take away the disk drive, they add in an extra terabyte, but it's still the same price. I would think it would be like $450 or $399. Hopefully, that's one of the things that is changing. And the other thing with this leak, I saw there's possibly going to be another Series S that releases. I feel bad for anybody that bought that 1 terabyte Series S, because if this leak is true, that means your console is going to get outdated in less than a year if they're really going to launch it in early 2024. And then my favorite part of the leaks, the emails, is the Gene Emil guy who was basically asking Phil Spencer straight up about Game Pass and if it's going to screw over developers. And he didn't really answer the question when he was pressed over email. I thought that was interesting. That was in 2021 in March. And that's the other thing I'll say about the emails is it seems like they're very reactionary. Like a lot of stuff, like they're just talking then through email, like, oh, hey, we don't have this in Game Pass. Maybe you should go make a deal. That sounds like a good idea. And there's like trading ideas over email. But then again, I kind of get it because it was kind of during COVID. So maybe that's just how they were operating during that time.
Yeah, no, I do.
But,
go ahead, David.
Sorry, I just add to that very briefly. Caution anyone who takes snippets of email conversations and snippets of reports and whatnot and tries to extrapolate it out to a full picture. That's just dangerous. And 99.9% of the time, you'll get it completely wrong.
Yep.
So I think it's risky to, other than the official documented reports and in their entirety, like their business plan, all that in its entirety. We haven't seen it all. We don't know the full scope, and we weren't available for the conversations. Well, we're just postulating at best. But for anyone who's going to grab these emails and go, this is definitely what's going to happen, you're on your own, guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. We always have to look at the context of the entire conversation, David. You make a good point. But, these emails did go out, and some of them were telling. You could read some of the opinions by some of the Xbox brass. But I do agree with you. You have to be very careful and tread carefully when you're looking at just a snippet from a one email or not. I guess, BRAP, the one thing I wanted to ask you was, I'm just going to go down this list. I have a list here I wrote real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I really think that the leaked emails, I thought that these emails that went out and this information that went out to the FTC, they've seen it. CMA's probably gotten their eyes on it. If we've gotten our eyes on it, they've gotten their eyes on it. Apparently, it didn't hold a whole lot in court, right? But Microsoft buying Nintendo, we saw the Oblivion remaster. Spencer, AAA game publishers lost their way. Microsoft dramatically underestimated Baldur's Gate 3. Phil wasn't really impressed with the PS5 reveal. Maybe that was him just kind of, getting morale up at Xbox. Xbox Series X going all digital. What does that say about the game preservation that they were talking about? selling that whole thing months, if not years ago. The new Xbox controller, basically, that's going to be coming out maybe in the near future that copies the DualSense. And Microsoft sees the next Xbox, post 2028 as a cloud hybrid in air quotes. So, BRAP, when you saw the leaks, what did you take? I know you read each one with a fine-tooth comb. What did you think when you saw some of these?
Look, I was first up. I'm a big Bethesda fan, although Starfield is my least favorite of the Bethesda games that they've released. But I was excited to see the Oblivion Fallout 3 remasters. I was like, okay, I'll buy those if that's real. And then the other thing too is kind of interesting. There's a licensed IP that is not Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones was listed there. That they're working on, and could maybe be a Star Wars game that they're working on.
Maybe.
But anyhow, and then there's also Dishonored 3, which I thought, if that's true, I think is fantastic. Is Dishonored 1 and 2 are really good games. Dishonored 1, I think, being the better in my opinion. But no, those were the things that really stood out to me. They really that I looked at and I was like, okay, like if this is true, and it probably is, right? It came from Microsoft, but no, like if this is true, then these are the games that I'd be really looking forward to, very interested in them releasing in the future. So the other stuff with the cloud hybrid, it's kind of like, what does that mean? Cloud hybrid, is it similar situation we're going to see where they're going to offer a console with a disc and then another console with the, that's similar to the Xbox Series S that does not have the disc, that's only digital only. Like, I'm not sure what that means. Like, is that what they're doing? Or I'm kind of curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
But with the 2 terabyte Series X, like, I'm wondering if that is going to replace the current Series X. Like, I don't, or if they lower the price of the Series X, because you're getting a disc, but you're also getting 1 terabyte of hardware storage space.
Yeah.
Versus a diskless console with 2 terabytes. I would imagine it'd be some kind of price difference there. But I do, and 410 and I were talking about this early in the week. I see, if they release this thing, I do see people that like diehard Xbox fans that will go out and buy this. They will absolutely go out and buy this. And I think potentially new customers that will go out and buy Series X, maybe for the first time they pick this up too, with the 2 terabytes of hard drive space. I think, the other option is you buy the 1 terabyte and you try to expand the memory slot. And what is it like? What are the Seagate storage solutions that Microsoft has? What do they go for now? Were they like $200 at one point?
Yeah, they were.
Like
They dropped.
150 now.
They actually have
Yeah, I guess
300
it's cheaper now. Yeah,
They,
so
they got the West Edition 50 now.
so it's 150. Yeah, so it's like, are you going to pay $550? Or are you going to pay the $499 and get the 2 terabyte diskless one? I don't know.
Right.
I would.
I'm surprised they don't have a 1 terabyte 399 listed, but the bottom of the sheet did say end of life for Starkville, which I think is the current Series X model.
Okay.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess
so-
no,
No,
Brad,
but those are my takeaways.
those
from
are
the,
great
from
takeaways. Jez, I want to ask Jez a question. Jez kind of goes off on his channel about this. The one thing that kind of struck me funny was and again, I do want to preface it what David said, that you take this with a grain of salt, because it's just a piece of email, a dialogue going back and forth. But Jez, when you saw that, the comments were made about, the underestimated value of Baldur's Gate and things like that, these are things coming from Phil and company, and these are the decisions they're making for future games for their system. This is a game that they kind of, I think, underplayed a bit, and this is going to be possibly game of the year. So, I mean, does it show maybe, I've always said this, and I never pick one name. I always say, I've been saying this for, 4 years. I think Xbox needs new leadership. I know a lot of people don't agree with that. That's fine. I've been saying this for a very long time. This isn't a new thing. But Jez, does that give you any kind of an unsettling feeling when you see that people that would make a decision on maybe a game that would go into Game Pass and make Game Pass this must-have, and they pass on a game or really didn't pay much attention to a game like a Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah, like I saw like the $5 million for Baldur's Gate, that would have been a deal. But again, I think they ran into issues with the development of the S. But yeah, I do feel like, reading the entirety of the email, not just a sentence or so, like I do feel that there is a lot of kind of figuring it out, winging it. We don't know. Let's try this. Let's do this. Like they seem to be not very like having they have an this is the thing. I think that they know where they know the end game. They just don't know how they're going to get there. And I think that's the problem that they have. Instead of trying to handle the current status and build their way to a goal with pivots in mind, with adaptation in mind, with technology changing, things like that, and get to a goal. They have their end game. They know that they want this cloud services. Nobody cares about platforms. We're all, and that is a hope. And even in his emails, he wrote where it's a hope and a promise that I know where we want to go. I just don't know how we're gonna get there. And that's why it seems every time, every strategy is just a random act of trying to get that growth. Saying we need to build up our first party to get games out. Well, they did the worst getting games out. 2020, no game. Halo got delayed. It was crickets. There was nothing else to pick up after it. And considering they bought studios to build up their first party, since they made that commitment, their first party has been lacking and everything's been an excuse. Or, Forza Horizon 5 was the only kind of competent game that didn't have I'm sorry behind it. And really, I think in their emails, he seemed very just kind of like, because even in the email to Amy Hood, when he was saying, like, I went to Amy Hood and Satya and said, well, we could get Nintendo, we could buy Warner Brothers, we just won't have the IP, and we could get Activision Blizzard, and they're like, should I stop because you guys may be interested in TikTok? And they go, no, don't stop. And it's like, really, you're going to pursue all three of those? Like, how? It comes from a point I find is desperation.
Yeah.
That they're all fighting for their jobs right now. Satya has a plan for them. He has like, I want this in this future now. And Phil is the one he's their gaming kind of like, he's their gaming person. Because I think Amy and Satya have no goddamn clue about gaming or anything. And Phil is there kind of like, Phil could get them to, trust me, this is a good deal. And they're like, oh yeah, sure, Phil, we trust you. Like, I think Phil is like their savant of gaming, and they just bank on his decisions and stuff. But I think he's just trying to figure out as well. And these emails really didn't they really just show the emails match the results. That's how I feel too. Like I feel like the cluelessness that comes out of these communications is demonstrated in the end product that they're releasing. Like when he's on interviews talking about Redfall the year before, we got 2 games coming next year. We're hyping up. We got 2 big games, Redfall and Starfield, and then find out when Redfall releases.
Yeah,
Phil was hands off ass first. Like he didn't even know about the game. He was like, I didn't, I don't know. Like he was like surprised.
Yeah.
Our internal reviews said it was gonna be a 90. I don't know.
Yeah.
What? You're the boss. Like how does this happen?
Phil from marketing.
Go ahead, BG.
For me, the Nintendo email was like, and I didn't take it as they were actively pursuing Nintendo, right? That's not what it sounded like. And they're smart enough to know that they can't get Nintendo. We know what happened 20 years ago. Nintendo was in an amazing place more than anybody else. And people say with the culture, with them being a Japanese company, that selling to somebody like Microsoft will be one of the last things they do, right? As a cultural standpoint, that's what people say. But to me, even though it was just like something casually being talked about, something like floated just casually in an email, not something they were taking too serious or anything like that, not actively pursuing. I don't think they were sending Nintendo no messages.
They told them to buy stock, BG. They said go buy stock, and this is the long game. They were pursuing them.
They did buy stock too.
Yeah, I guess. I just don't. I get what you're saying. I just don't think they, I think it still spoke to their mindset and their ideology of how to handle their gaming strategy, and that's what I think is like so weird, because like, okay, on the outside, the narrative they like to push is that we're doing this for the gamers, right?
Yes.
And like the good guy image. People hate when I said that, but that's what Xbox tries to portray through all of their like marketing and their interaction with the fans, that we're these great people and we're good guys. And I get that that's partially PR, but I think they've tried, like they've definitely leaned into that personality, that front a little bit too hard. So
Yeah.
and that was their whole thing with all these acquisitions, is they're doing it for the betterment of gaming. You know, this is for the consumer and all those things. And granted, I give you, if anybody had the chance to, like, if Nintendo went to anybody and say, "Hey, we want to be acquired," you kind of have to say yes. I get that, right? But that's not the case. It's kind of an idea being floated around. It's like, bro, it kind of speaks to the fact there is nothing you would not do. So how is that for good for the industry or for the consumer?
Exactly.
There's no line you wouldn't cross. That's what that
Right.
email says to me, and that's the problem, because like just like a lot of the fans, you know, they're not concerned about the long-term ramifications. It's like, bro, if we can get Nintendo, where or even like pursue them, we're gonna do it. Screw anything else.
Anything.
We're
Right.
just gonna worry about us. It doesn't matter if we're gonna get one of the if we acquire one of the biggest publishers, and there's no way that would be good for the industry. We're gonna do it. So all that they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
That's the part where I'm like, bro, come on. I mean, I knew it was nonsense before, but people should see that now and know that it was always nonsense.
Thank you for bringing that up, BG. That's part of what I've been saying here for a long time, and I think BG, you said it way better than I did. I got to be honest with you. It's just that they will stop at no cost to acquire and get what they want, and they can. And shout out to
almost reminds me when they almost got TikTok for whatever reason.
Right. There's no stopping them if they want it, and then they decide.
And Mooch,
what goes
Mooch, you
in.
pair that with
Goody.
over the FTC trials and everything else, like the emails that were coming out, about things that Booty was saying about acquiring outspending and doing that. You just get this air like, yeah, like when do you stop and kind of say, well, does this make the most sense, or are we just doing this because we have the ability to do it?
Right.
And it's like when you keep, remember Satya, like, well, let us compete. It's like, you're not really competing. What you're kind of just doing is like suffocating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're only doing it because, you're really not a great student, but your legacy in this school.
Yeah.
And you're only here, like the other kids are like over there, they're really competing and they're grinding and they're doing their thing. And you're still here. You have the worst grades, but you're still here because your dad can afford to put a gym on the school.
Yeah, last thing I wanted to say is like acquisitions, and this is my stance, should make when you make an acquisition, you should make who you're acquiring better. That should be the purpose.
Right, yes.
Exactly.
What could Microsoft teach Nintendo about gaming? Not one thing.
Nothing.
There's almost nothing anybody could teach Nintendo about gaming, because as much as we criticize them for certain things, gaming is like what they know. They may not be the most forward with their tech. They may not have the best like infrastructure, but gaming, there's nothing you can question them about. There's nothing you can tell.
They understand
And
the
apparently,
assignment.
what he said in the last sentence of the email was that it's just taking a long time for Nintendo to see that their future exists off their own hardware. So that's what they would offer. They would just kill the identity of Nintendo and say, Nintendo, your product is everywhere now on PC, on all this other stuff, and that's what they would do. That's
right, and
that's his
problem.
offering.
That's the problem people had. That statement. That's the problem that people had.
I can believe it. Like,
it came off.
Oh
it came off as very corporate Microsoft arrogant in a way. Like,
dude, you see the other? I have it right here. He goes, the unfortunate or fortunate for Nintendo situations that they're sitting on a big pile of cash. They have a board of directors that have until recently have not pushed for further increases in market growth. And he goes, I say until recently because our former Microsoft board of director member Value Act has been heavily acquiring shares of Nintendo. And I kept in touch with Mason Wolfett, wherever he is, and he has been acquiring. It's likely he will be pushing for more from Nintendo stock, which could create opportunities for us. A friggin' plant he put in there. He goes, without their catalyst, I don't see a near-term mutual agreement merger for Nintendo, and I don't think a hostile action would be a good move. He doesn't say, he says, I don't think it would be good, but he could consider hostile action to this thing. It's insane, the aggressiveness that, what are they going to do with Nintendo? You really are that desperate that you're just gonna take Nintendo and just dump them in your vision? I'm just, it's appalling. And it's scary as hell as a gamer to know that there's somebody out there that wants to do this to the whole goddamn gaming industry. To spit it and chew it out. I can't stand it.
It's
ridiculous.
I'll add to that. Yeah, I agree. Can I add to that by sort of pitching two questions then? First one is this notion, do we just accept that Microsoft's plan going forward, or part of their plan going forward, is this notion of access games everywhere, regardless, so that as long as they're in control of the ultimate point, that they're happy to let it happen? You know, like idea being that Nintendo provides their games not on Nintendo only, but they put it on PlayStation and Xbox and PC and everything else. If that's the plan for going forward, how well is that plan working for Microsoft at the moment?
Exactly.
And the second thing I would put forth is Xbox's, from financial metrics and performance metrics and a lot of other things, Xbox is you know, it's not shut the shop tomorrow, but it's not exactly belting the pants off everyone else. Is their strategy of buying, and you look at who they've indicated that they want to buy, is the strategy less around acquiring to get that revenue stream and more around acquiring to get to the top quickly? Because if you look at, you know, if they bought Nintendo, they're basically going to acquire a shitload of IP that's got a very dedicated fan base. Now, it's touch and go if you change up the way that they play that game. But if they had, I'm not saying it would happen, but if they had the opportunity to have Mario and Pokemon and all of that shit that Nintendo's got, if they had the opportunity to have that in their stable, just by default, even if you had a 50% attrition rate, that's still another 50 odd million people that are going to jump into your ecosystem, regardless about how you provide it to them. And it's similar with their Activision purchase. Microsoft have got a horrible pipeline production set up at the moment. They just can't kick anything out. They've got studios that are in their 5th and 6th year of making a game and they still can't get anything out. There's an issue with their pipeline. ABK doesn't have that issue. They kick games out every year. They kick updates out every year across multiple platforms. So it seems to be, there's an argument there that it's less about acquiring to pick up something to make it better and less about acquiring just to have a revenue stream, which, you know, in a lot of instances, if you can buy an organization that's got a really strong revenue stream and you can hack out a heap of its costs, like what Embracer Group is doing, and sell off all the deadwood, you get a very profitable outcome from that.
Yeah.
If it's not option A or option B, option C is we're buying a solution to our problem because we can't figure out how to build it ourselves. And it'll be faster to just buy it.
That's exactly.
And isn't that troublesome? I mean, there's a lot of Xbox fans in the chat right now. Did you hear what
Dude,
Falky said?
ludicrous.
That's troublesome right there. They've bought a lot of different studios. Some of them are having a hard time getting games out, and at the same, and then they're trying to buy their way to, like you say, David. They're trying to buy their portfolio, and that's I don't know. I personally I think there's a lot of issues at Xbox, and this is the other thing I say with the media all the time. Like, why doesn't the media cover some of this? Like, I think this is interesting.
Well, I always,
it doesn't sell quick.
Every time I looked at it, I always said that the biggest benefit this would do for Xbox, especially with the ABK deal, that revenue goes to their bottom line, and that just helps. Like, think about when you go, like right now, everything is, I mean, they have their P&Ls, they have their budgets and stuff, you know, marketing, you know, just game development and everything like that. And like Dave said earlier, you know, $9 billion is what they made, you know, in revenue off of, you know, everything but the cloud service, you know, just selling games, microtransactions and stuff like that. Activision brings in 6 to 7 billion by itself just off of those 3 IP, those games that we were talking about earlier, which is almost close to what Microsoft does as a whole, as a company over the course of a year. So just think about what those numbers and those P&Ls look with something like that in there. It makes them more sustainable. It makes them look a little bit more valuable as a whole to Microsoft as a part of the, like, just a little small cog inside of the giant wheel. and they can start funding their stuff, their own stuff at that point, instead of going to Microsoft and having to do that. Now, Microsoft's always going to be there to flip bills if they need to, if it makes sense. But I always thought that this was like the get in and say, we're gonna do this now. We're gonna put as much effort behind this to make this work.
Yeah.
And you just see, like, in those emails that, like I said, a lot of this stuff has probably changed over the course of the year, because this was over 2 years ago. A lot of the conversation around this has changed, and this was before ABK became something that Xbox actually Microsoft was going after.
Mhm.
It's just a simple fact that they're looking at it like, okay, this is going to help our bottom line. And like even Phil said in those statements, he like, ABK isn't the plan; it was the accelerator to the plan, and maybe the plan was like everybody keeps thinking, being as profitable as you can as an entity,
Mhm.
and then doing everything you can on the back end to basically help yourself basically tread water into get all of these other things in order. Because like Dave just said, Activision doesn't have a problem releasing games. They don't have a problem with getting games out the door. They do it yearly. They have a revenue stream, especially for stuff like World of Warcraft and Call of Duty Mobile, that anybody would pretty much want. And that's kind of just baked into that. And that will help just suffice the company in general when it comes to just Xbox itself underneath that banner.
And y'all, I'm going to say something. I'm going to piss off a lot of people, and they're probably in this chat too. And listen, when we were talking about the 360 and talking about how Call of Duty associated with Xbox, it was the shooter box and stuff like that. Listen, in the 360 era, they did what they did. They didn't have to do any of this. And we were getting games. They were doing well.
Yep.
They did not have to buy Epic to get Gears. They did not have, for Gears 1, 2, and 3, were they trying to acquire them? No. Were they tried to acquire Nintendo at the beginning of the Xbox. Were they talking about Nintendo with the Wii U? They said, no, go buy a Wii and a 360. Wii 60, everybody. They weren't trying to cannibalize Nintendo. They were done with Nintendo. The thing is nobody sits here and asks to this day, what the hell are they doing now? What did they do? They got games on their system with no acquisitions. BioShock, Mass Effect, none of this stuff. Rock Band, DLCs, and all this other stuff, exclusive stuff, without even buying a goddamn company.
Yeah.
But was that more? And we don't want to take, and I don't want to take away what Xbox did that generation, because it was pretty incredible what they pulled off. But was that more a symptom of what PlayStation didn't do and what they ended up doing later?
No, because you saw when Microsoft cannibalized themselves with the goddamn Xbox One reveal. They were rolling in that Xbox One with their momentum.
Well, I think Xbox One kind of got cannibalized starting in 2018, 2011.
Well, they decided to focus on Kinect.
Well,
they did.
I don't even think it's Kinect. I think it was more of they started cannibalizing themselves when they stopped focusing on their first party. Remember, 2011 was the last time that they really started focusing on first party. They held everything to, basically they wanted to hold all their games to 2013 to the Xbox One launch. And then they didn't have any real goodwill on the game side when they made all those announcements.
Well, everything they did was self-inflicted because of their success. It was hubris. So nobody did this to them. Nobody took stuff away. They rode the high horse, and then they basically did this. So now I'm saying, why do they need to be in this position? And I'm going to tell you the answer. The answer is that Phil's vision in 2017 to be everywhere, it made Xbox more irrelevant, because now you took the identity away of the brand and just spread it thin, and quality went down slope.
Right.
Now what they're doing is they realized, hey, and he has it in the emails about being relevant, gaming relevancy. They are now so irrelevant that the only way for them to even get back into the gaming conversation is to make monstrous acquisitions and have their name slapped to some of the biggest games that already are available. They are not ready to build something from the ground up and try to start anew. They go, no, we got to buy our relevancy back into this. They're like the goddamn person that wants to be with the cool kids and saying, now I want to be relevant with you. But they did this all to themselves because they took their focus off quality games and games that people want to play and deals for games that people will come to your platform for. They did that, and they put themselves in this position. And now, in order to get them out, they're willing to burn down the whole gaming industry to turn themselves to be relevant. You want to know what? This is the wrong way because they're not focusing on that. And I'm going to tell you another thing. You look at all those leaked documents. I'm going to tell you, I went off on my goddamn podcast about this. Their leaked documents, their roadmap to be successful, there is not one goddamn game on those leaked documents at all. Nothing about their perfect dock, their Fable releases. They have milestones as a friggin' wireless Xbox controller, another goddamn console, a goddamn cloud device. No games. Don't you think games would make your subscriber base increase? Nothing's on there. We didn't find anything about Fable, Perfect Darks, Hellblade 2's, anything. We found nothing. All it was about another goddamn controller that now connects to the cloud.
Yeah, no, that's
there are no games. They took their eye off the ball, and now they are trying to burn it all down to make themselves relevant for their bullshit cloud.
Well, they have games in development. We don't want to say
they've
that.
been since 2018. Where's the guidance? Why are these games not out? We got 2 God Awards before we see Hellblade 2 is still in development.
They may not have the best, I guess, pipeline to releasing games, but we know they got, you know, the Fables and the
was that real gameplay? Because Phil said it was real gameplay. I can't wait to show how that's not real gameplay.
And you know, by Obsidian and all that stuff. So they're definitely slow to come out. They're definitely not the best, I guess, functioning machine, but I don't want to.
But when they come out, are they polished? Are they fully complete? Or we get Forza not a launch edition? Forza 6 years. They were coming out with Forza 7 every 2 goddamn years, 7 of them. And now we wait 6 years for a Forza, and all we hear about is not at launch, not at launch. So you had 6 years to make it.
It does seem. No, and BG, I do get your point. There's definitely. I mean, we've seen it, right? They've come out. They've done 2 different shows now. We've seen that they have games in development. But it's interesting when the leaks come out. And the leaks and the things that are out there, it's all hardware. You would think that we would have seen Fable release, you know, leaked Fable release
as milestones,
spring 20.
Well, they were old too, though.
They were old. That's true. They were old. They were old. Yes.
I mean, if you were, I would agree with everything when it comes to like the overall hardware, because we're all. That's the one thing we always talked about. It's like, oh my god, I hope they don't talk about hardware again anytime soon because we just got the hardware we got. But you know, when it comes to the leaks and the games and stuff. This was an issue 2 years ago. We already knew this was an issue 2 years ago. And I think the one email that says the most is the one where he was when Phil sent the email to Sarah Bond, and he basically talking to his leadership team and everything that was going on with just the pipeline of games, and saying that they need to do this and they need to make sure that they get these internal dates in line with these games. And it was the one where they're talking about Stalker 2 being delayed indefinitely because of the war in Ukraine. So you definitely know that they felt a lot of the pressure that was really, really mounting. And I think everybody looks at the conversation and says that they put on a good phase. I always knew behind the scenes that it was like anarchy, because you don't just go through the year that they went through in 2022 and expect it to be okay. They already knew, like they said in the emails, like literally the next 16 months is barren after Halo Infinite. That was like literally one of the biggest lines in that whole email that I saw. And the emails really didn't make me, I didn't learn anything. I learned the thing that I always learned. Corporations are going to do what they need to do in order to be successful and how they need to do it. It may look different year to year, quarter to quarter, month to month. Everything changes. What they tell you now is something that they completely tell you different. You know, this isn't just a Microsoft thing. This is just a corporation thing in general. And the only thing is Xbox has put this face on where they want everybody to see them as, you know, the good guy. And that's kind of been serving them well, like especially earlier, late in the generation and earlier in this one. But now you're starting to see that there is a lot of different holes in a lot of the conversations that they're having. But the biggest thing is ultimately they're just going to keep doing what they need to do to make this survive. And you really, I mean, I can't say that I fought them for that, but that's basically what they're doing right now. They're fighting for relevance. And you're right, because they did this to themselves. Mm-hmm. We all know that they did this to themselves. This is nothing new. This has been going on for over a decade, a generation at this point. and they're still playing catch up for the mistakes they made back in 2011 when they think about it, they had 4 first-party studios halfway through last generation. Now, most people don't want to say this, but in 2018, when they made all of those acquisitions and they talked about all of those studios they bought, I said right then and there, we're not going to see these games from these people no time soon, because a lot of those studios just released games on other platforms. They fulfill obligations to other studios or other platforms right around that same time. And those games were not even being thought
they
of
shut
those
down
times.
Lionhead. They shut down Lionhead.
But no,
Yeah.
we're not talking about Lionhead.
They
because
closed
Lionhead's-
them. They
we're
they
not talking about
closed the
Lionhead
Project Spock people. Like
Exactly.
they got rid of their first party.
No, exactly. That's what I
studios.
said. That's what I said. And they like halfway through last generation, they had 4 first-party studios because they
because they got rid of them.
They got rid of all of them. 2018, they hired all of them, but they also hired a bunch of studios that already had stuff in development for other platforms. They had games going. They already like when you think about Obsidian, The Outer Worlds literally just released. So when are we going to see another game from them?
I think they've been the best though. I think they actually came out with a lot of games. They came out. Obsidian has been their best purchase.
Well, the only game they came out with, Obsidian came out with was since then was what was the game? No, did they come in?
Yeah, they did Pentiment.
Yeah, they did Pentiment.
But they got Avowed coming. So like you look, but I'm just saying like their product.
Not
they
here,
got,
but that's the thing. Avowed's not here.
but it's for next year.
Do we know that's next year?
I don't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't look that great, but it's supposedly next year.
But see, that's what I'm talking about. So think about it. They talked about this in 2018. We're in 2023, and we know Avowed is a thing, but we don't know if it's going to be early next year, late next year. More than likely, it's going to be next year. It's just that a lot of stuff for them did not line up for when they made those purchases. Now, the only ones I can't even fight you on. I can't fight you on Fable because they always been in bed with
yeah,
Playground.
but that was all. But I'm gonna tell you, I know that they created that studio back then, so that was a spin-off of Playground.
No, that's what I'm saying. So we can't fight you on that. We can't really fight. We really can't fight anybody when it comes to the new studio that they made. We don't
Initiative.
The Initiative.
Perfect
we know
Dark.
right
That's
now,
been a disaster.
Square Enix. What's the name? Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics. Crystal Dynamics working on that game now, so we don't know what's going to happen.
If Crystal Dynamics is, who knows?
And then we don't know what's going on with Hellblade.
And State of K3 on the one, and also
they haven't even mentioned State of the K3. Since
well, Phil said he loved it last year. I thought they were going to announce it. It was State of K3, and then also the other game, that Everwild from Rare, that got rebooted a bunch of times too, and that was shown in 2019.
All of this is not a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like when you look at the three, the big three, Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, two of them. Gaming is like their number one priority.
Exactly.
That's what it is. Like that's the main division and the most important division for Sony, right? And Nintendo, that's pretty much all they are, is gaming. So it's not a coincidence that you could see the difference in that fact with how with priority and how Xbox handles things, and like Sony acts like their life depends on it with gaming, because it does, kind of.
It does. It definitely does. It does.
Nintendo, same thing.
Yep.
Microsoft, it could literally die tomorrow and they would be completely fine. So that kind of shows up. So, but at the same time, I don't want to take away from the fact that they are doing better and they're trying to do the best with their pipeline and everything like that. They just don't, and it's been decades since they've all been in the gaming space, and Microsoft were a little bit slow to, I guess, develop and catch up and everything like that. They should be farther than they are right now. But yeah, it just shows up with how gaming is a priority.
So it's funny. So BG, let me ask you a question though, BG, just to kind of pile on that. You make a good point, because we all know that right now PlayStation, Sony, let's not even say PlayStation, Sony and PlayStation are kind of they need PlayStation to be successful. Nintendo needs their gaming to be top notch, to be alive. But we heard David Faulkner say earlier, okay, like they did. If this deal goes through, which it's going to, there's somewhere in that $80 to $100 billion range they just spent in their war chest. Now, that's not nearly gonna, like, if they close they're not gonna close Xbox, but if they did that, I just don't think with this type of investment, I don't think Microsoft would just back off of Xbox right now. You would think you would have a little bit more of an investment now with this kind of cash flow going out. And we just heard Forte and we just heard Jez go back and forth about 5 or 6 projects that have been told to us since 2019 or before, still not out there. The initiative having issues. Now Crystal Dynamics having layoffs because of Embracer Group. That's going to affect Perfect Dark. Fable, we're seeing Playground Games, which only made a car simulator game, an arcade car game, now doing this. It just seems like it's kind of a mess. It's a mess over there.
Yeah, and I want to ask Forte something, because going back to
what's up, bro?
Game Pass, because even though they're doing both, right? Obviously, Game Pass, and they're selling things. I still feel the problem, because they talked about it plateau. It's funny because BRAP might remember this. We were in the spaces like years ago. This is like 2 years ago, where I brought up, what if Game Pass plateaus, right? And I had no idea if it would or not. I'm just like, what if it does?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what things have been right now. Is like, and they said it has barely grown in 2 years, right? What I think is happening, and Forte, you could let us know, is like, I think the casuals still really don't know about Game Pass that much. As much as they've been promoting it and pushing it, I think like the 25 to 30 million is really mainly the hardcore gamers.
Yeah.
Because it's a subscription service that you need a lot of people to buy into. But it's really the hardcore that are going to care about it, because the casuals, they may know about it a little bit, but they don't care enough, because they're only going to buy 3-4 games a year.
That's
so what am I going to get a subscription service for something that I'm not that invested in for, right?
Exactly.
So because I usually don't have like, anybody, like I don't have a lot of casual gamer friends or anything that usually around me to ask. But like, so, and this is a small sample size. I just asked my nephew. I just asked him, I'm like, have you about Game Pass subscription service? And all he plays is Siege, Fortnite, 2K, Matt. Literally all he plays.
Yep.
I'm like, you ever heard of Game Pass? And he's like, yeah, I heard about it, but I just never cared to look into it.
So I'll give you on both spectrums. This actually came up, it's pretty funny. It came up today. I was in Target, like buying cases of water for the store today, and it was the AT&T rep. They just stop you. They want to ask, hey, what kind of cell phone you got? I'm like, my wife works for T-Mobile. I got a 90% off plan. You really can't help me. And he was
wait,
like,
wait, I got
yeah, I got this. And I was like,
yeah,
okay,
wait.
Okay, and then he saw my shirt. I had a Starfield shirt on, because I was literally just leaving. I was at work still. And he was like, oh, how you like Starfield? I said, oh, it's good. I mean, I play it here and there. It's not like this groundbreaking game that I have to play every day. He said, yeah, a whole bunch of my friends are playing it, and I was thinking about playing it. I said, oh, just play it in Game Pass. You could literally do it there. He was like, is that good? Is Game Pass this? And I said, yes, if you just want to try stuff out, it's really, really good, and you don't have to pay for the game, especially if it's a game that's in there you want to play. And like, I literally educated this dude on what Game Pass was in the middle of the store at Target for like 5 minutes. He had no idea any of the stuff. I literally, he said, yeah, well, all games are in there. I literally put up my phone, because I got the Game Pass app on my phone, and I literally showed him the games in there. He's like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. And I was like, dang, this is a person that works in the electronics section. I mean, it's not video games, but you would think that he's over there seeing people buy games all the time, and that conversation will probably just come up about, people buying games and stuff.
But it comes down to Forte.
No idea. Same thing when I'm at my job. A lot of people, if I had to poll most people that walk in the store, and I got 2 different stores. I got one that's in the suburbs, one that's up in the actual city in Detroit. So 2 different clienteles. And if I had to poll most of them, probably 80% buy about 70 to 80% buy digitally. Then you got the hardcore 15% of people that, or maybe 18% of people that buy the physical copy of games, and they just like physical. And then you got the 1 to 2% that walk in and you say, oh, I'm going to play that in Game Pass. So it is people that know about it, but nowhere near the majority, or even close to even probably 10% of the people that walk.
But it comes down.
But isn't that telling though? Like,
this
has been around since 20.
That's what I'm saying.
That's also part of the accelerator though. Like I keep telling people, like Starfield. Okay, Starfield is one thing. because like you talked about how Bethesda didn't move the needle with Starfield. Starfield's not Call of Duty. Like you do, you got to think when you do Call of Duty, and this is if they ever do put it in Game Pass, because who really knows what they're going to do with them having to make the money back. But if they ever did throw Call of Duty in Game Pass, the marketing that says Game Pass available on Xbox or wherever you could play it at, that would be tied to every Call of Duty piece of material that ever walked out of their door.
Do you think they can do that though? Like, regulators are going to allow them to market that to their? I don't know. Like, could they do that?
No, they can market it to they already got the stipulations of what they can't do.
All right. Well, do they have to put it in Sony's subscription, or did they? No, that wasn't part of the thing.
Who knows? I don't know
either.
We haven't seen any of it.
Let's talk about but you have to talk about the current. You have to talk about the current day here. So you have 42 that we know, 42 million PlayStation 5 sold, right? So even if they market the hell out of it, which they can't do till 2025, okay. So when that happens, let's say that happens in 2025, that's going to be another. Let's just say 10 million. 52 million is probably more than that. 52 million. PlayStation 5. So is it really cheaper for somebody who's only a PS5 gamer now to go spend $500 on a box and then
think about it.
$17 a month?
This is the thing. It's not going to be no mass. First of all, it's not going to be no mass exodus.
That's what I'm saying. So this is the thing. It goes back to what BG saying. This is
a million here. Think about it, Mooch. All it takes $1 million here, 2 million. By the third year, you probably got an extra 3 million that probably came over. Or they decided just to play it on PC. We also got to remember that these games are still bought on PC too. So even knowing they don't really care about you buying the game, that's still revenue that hits their back pocket.
These people that play the games, like us, me included, like, right? So I have Game Pass, but I still buy Call of Duty. Like, even if it's
I want to own.
I bought Starfield.
Like, I'm not. On Steam.
The minute Mike, I'm more. Listen, I listen to BG's podcast and I see him on. I fall pretty much in his category. Like when I want something, I'm just gonna go buy. Like once my Game Pass runs out, I'm not gonna resubscribe to Game Pass. When I have a game,
more question, then I gotta go.
When I have a game that I want to play, and it's back to back, I buy them and I play them and I want to own them. I mean, I know that for a lot of people in the chat, they're like, that doesn't mean anything to me, but it means a lot to me.
And I will always tell you that people. What we think and what the majority of most casuals thinks is different things, because right now the benefit isn't there because casuals don't know about it. The moment it's something that they know about and it's actually a benefit to them, they'll do it. It just comes down to Microsoft making it a benefit. Right now it's not a benefit because they don't even really know about it, and the games that they play aren't really in that service. So
but I think you pointed out the problem, Forte, right there.
Yeah.
The guy didn't say, hey, sir, what's Game Pass? He said, there's a game that I want to play,
right?
And then it happens to be in the service. See, the problem is they haven't had games that people want to play.
And that's
what they need. So that's what they've been lacking to make even the Game Pass pitch. It comes to a game in the service. And when Phil's like, great games, if we just focus on great games, console sales, it will shift because great games start the conversation. Yep. Then you sell the Game Passes and the subscriptions. If they come for the games, stay for the services. But if you don't start with great games or games that people want to play, then the service is not even, it's irrelevant. That's why we're here from 2017.
Here's the question that I have, right?
Go ahead, BJ.
Here's the question that I just be wondering, right? Because people have this debate, and I tell you, I'm up front. I'm not a economist. I don't know these numbers and all that stuff. Does Microsoft care if they say it's profitable, right? But as we saw, they have goals like 50K subscribers, 60, 70, all the way up to 100. If it never gets nowhere near that and it actually stays like somewhat like Call of Duty will increase it. Let's say it's like the cap it ever gets to is like 50K. Do they care? Like, because they have so much money that they make from other things, they can subsidize it and cover that cost. So are they okay with Game Pass, like, never actually growing to that amount? I'm just curious.
That's the question. The question comes so we saw the document say they wanted to be at over 100 million by 2030. I think that number definitely changes. Like the math on it could change with the acquisition of ABK, because you are bringing anywhere from $7 to $8 billion extra dollars in a year to your bottom line. So that definitely does change the math.
Like mobile, what they make from mobile could cover like what they lose on Game Pass, right?
Yeah, mobile could cover that too. Now, ultimately, it just comes down to, will Xbox be the same Xbox at that point? You know, because is Game Pass like are they gonna be okay? Are they gonna ever get to the point where all of these studios start actually turning out games? Now, if that's the case and the games start turning out, then yeah, they might be okay with 50 to 60 million people subscribe to Game Pass on a month-to-month basis. But if the games are if the reception of the games don't pick up, then that's when you'll start seeing more problems, because then that number will just fluctuate way too many times. You'll go from 60 million one month, maybe during the months of Call of Duty, like November and December during the holiday season, up to January, because they do them in 3-month intervals. Maybe the numbers are skyrocketed during those 3 months. But then what might happen after that? They might fall down into the 40 million market. Is Microsoft and Xbox going to be okay with dips like that?
Well, they're dealing with dips like that right now, because right now the only number out is 25 million. We know at certain times, like before Starfield came out, they were probably as low as maybe 20 or 18. Then Starfield came out, maybe they went as high as 27, 28, maybe 30. So there's always going to be, peaks and valleys. It's just the way that the system goes.
I just don't think you're ever going to get numbers from Microsoft ever again.
Mooch, I gotta go. Sorry to leave so early. But
no, BG, I appreciate you being here, BG, and I'll definitely do an outro for you after the show when we do outros.
Hey, man.
All right.
Later,
Appreciate
BG.
all y'all.
Thanks,
Great
BG.
show. Thank y'all. I'm out.
Absolutely.
Appreciate BG.
Later, bro.
So let's switch it over a little bit. DC, I'll go to you on this. This is one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about. We'll do kind of a lightning round here. I really do want to ask you, DC, do you think that we will see, now that I mentioned it at the beginning of the show, the floodgates kind of open here? Do you think we're going to end up seeing something where we have PlayStation acquire there's, they say where's smoke there's fire. This has come out a few times. I'm not holding a whole lot of bank. Do you think maybe CD Projekt Red is a company that Sony goes after, or did the Sony say, nah, we're not doing this strategy? We're telling you right now, we don't believe in that kind of strategy. We'll pick up smaller teams like Housemarque, right, and things like that, but we're not going to be going out there and grabbing these massive companies that have 300, 400, 500 employees. Who knows how many CD Projekt Red has? It's a large company. Like, do you think that Sony will now be forced to go into this? I wouldn't use the word panic mode, but they may have to start acquiring. I don't think it's about the IP. I think it's the talent too. They're gonna have to start scooping up some of this talent.
Yeah, I definitely think they will definitely look at acquiring more teams. I mean, they definitely have to, because I think, Microsoft's kind of forcing their hand. It's almost, maybe it's almost kind of like they got caught with their pants down, like, oh man, we relied a little too much on some of these third parties. Maybe we need to, start locking down stuff that we know we'll have guaranteed. Because, at this point, nothing's guaranteed really.
It's true. I mean,
you never know what could be the next acquisition. I mean, one day you might think, hey, I'm playing this game forever. And next thing you know, oh, never mind.
Well, Eric, do you think that this is forcing Sony's hand into making, again, 2 points, IP and talent? I mean, there's only so much talent. There's a reason the XFL really didn't make it, right? I know that they're trying to make a resurgence right now. There's only so much talent out there, and the NFL was like, yeah, we got it all, okay? Good luck. You got a couple of the guys that we cut and that maybe were retired. That's cool. Maybe it's entertaining. It's not the NFL. So there's quality game developers out there, right? It doesn't matter, right? There's top quality chefs, and then there's not so great chefs. There's amazing developers, and then there's not such amazing developers. So if you have these teams out there, and we see now, right? Who knows the reason? Maybe they'll write a book. CD Projekt Red will write a book in a couple of years. But right now, I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077 2.0. Man, this thing is this is the game I think the devs would have always wanted us to play. So this is a talented team. Is this a situation where you see that type of team get acquired by a PlayStation, Sony, or no? They're not going to fall victim to this mass acquiring that's going on because Xbox is doing it.
I don't know. The thing with that is, I think the only reason like Sony would have to think that way is because, again, we'll go back to mentioning the way Microsoft is thinking. They don't seem to be thinking in terms of strategy. It's just like, well, we have the ability, so let's just do it. So it's sort of that thing where it's like, if you're going to like a yard sale and and they have all these awesome items and you see people going for a frenzy and grabbing everything, you're like, well, I'm just gonna grab what I can, because it's almost all gone. It's that kind of thing. I don't know if that's necessarily forcing their hand or if that's a smart move for them to like just grab who they think they can. I think it still has to make sense for Sony. So I don't know if grabbing a CD Projekt Red makes sense for them, unless CD Projekt Red has like a roadmap of things that they're going to work on that Sony just can't deny.
Right.
It's that kind of thing. Because again, the strategy, Microsoft is using, and again, I'll go back and stand by it. I don't have a problem with them, bolstering their portfolio by grabbing studios or, especially studios that are like, again, almost out of there.
Yes.
And it makes sense. But I don't think they're grabbing studios that necessarily always make sense for them. They're just grabbing things because, they can. And, and we don't see like the management leadership and all these different things. I mean, that can come in time, but it's going to take a long time for them to get that kind of thing in order. Whereas like for Sony, I don't know if it just makes sense to start grabbing whoever. I know people keep saying, well, maybe Square Enix. I'm like, I don't know if that even makes sense for them to lock that down. Will that benefit them
I don't think
as far as bringing people to the platform?
No, I don't think when it comes to Square Enix, it would at all. I do think a CD Projekt Red is an interesting discussion to have. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm telling you that right now, think about it. That's a talented team. It's a large developing team. They just got done doing this. The DLC's done. This team's hungry and ready. They probably have something that they're working on, right? Or at least something that they have conceptually derived. So my point being is that this would be a team that Sony goes, okay, wow, we picked these guys up, and they're going to do something to the caliber of a Cyberpunk or a Witcher, and it'll be exclusively on our console, and it may be ready in 3 to 4 years. That's not a bad pickup. And again, it's the talent. It's the talent. So, I mean, because the talent is going to be eaten up, gobbled up, and then you're going to be left with what's left out there. So you either strike or you get left, behind. I don't see any way around it.
I think, Mooch, the only reason that, again, it's like a hand-forcing thing. If you have a company that has the ability to suffocate you or suffocate, I won't say so much Nintendo, because, again, Nintendo seems to understand their assignment of building their hardware around their software and utilizing their IP. And Nintendo, to me, again, getting the assignment, they're diversifying and breaking out into other things that use their IP. Because why? They have an IP portfolio that speaks to the levels of Disney, Marvel, the most recognizable IP characters in the world. Like, their IP does that.
Yeah.
So they're not in the same position as, like, people keep kind of like looking down on them because of the hardware. Oh, they don't do 4K. Nintendo's like, we don't give a damn about a 4K. Now, yeah, they could do better on their systems as far as like messaging, because that's a nightmare trying to find anybody to play anything on Switch. They can definitely do some things to bolster those areas, but if that's the least of what they have to worry about right now, then they're in a pretty good spot, right? So Sony making moves would be more or less reactionary to what Microsoft is doing. And this is why I have the hard time with people rah cheerleading this whole acquisition thing only in this little space of Twitter, because it's like the whataboutism, the tit for tat, hey, Sony should do this in reaction. It's like, that's not smart business. They have to do the things that make sense for them. And I don't think necessarily at the same time Microsoft is doing the smart business thing either, because you look at like Embracer, look at what they're kind of going through right now. There's nothing to say Microsoft couldn't be in that same position.
Yeah. That's something that we were
people
talking,
keep going on about think about this, Mooch. Every time there's a highly rated 90 meta of an independent studio, what's the first thing people start doing? They don't talk about how good the game is and I want to pick it up and play it. Microsoft should buy them.
Right.
Why?
Buy them.
They should buy them. Why? That moves a piece off the board. That does whatever. This cheering on of buying everything. It's like, that's not going to land you in the spot that you want to be in.
Right.
Something's going to fall out. And the thing is, yes, these studios are brought in to feed Game Pass, but Game Pass needs to be fed. And guess what? Microsoft is on the hook. Every studio that they acquired, they are now on the hook for that studio producing. Right?
Absolutely.
They have to churn and put things out. And guess what? If you're not pulling that weight and putting things out, it might not necessarily be about you getting the best metas all the time, but if you're producing something and they're on the hook for that money to have that thing produced, and it goes into Game Pass and no one pays attention to it because they still need that to feed Game Pass and bring people in, and it's not doing anything, some talks are going to have to happen eventually.
Well, that makes sense, right? You think about the two different types of things. So you have games like Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is, in my opinion, and if I was sitting at the boardroom, this is how I would pitch it to film them. I'd say Hi-Fi Rush keeps our current Game Pass subscribers here because it's a good game, right? We don't want them to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But Hi-Fi Rush is not bringing in, and they know this, 5-10 million new subscribers. It's the Bethesda games. It's going to be the Call of Duties that they're banking on to bring people in. But like you said, it's a gamble. And so here's the gamble. And I ask you guys, let me ask the panel, and guys, chime in. I don't have to call on. You guys chime right in here. It's Crossfire. Like, legitimately, like, do you think that so far Bethesda's buy, has that brought in the dividends in the numbers? Because they've got Deathloop in there. They've got Ghostwire Tokyo in Game Pass. They've got Redfall, and they have Starfield. And yet we haven't seen Microsoft put a new number out there. Now, Forte says we're not going to hear it anymore, but the Game Pass numbers, I think they're going to have to voice those at some point.
Can I say this? Can I say this one thing before, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut the other panel off.
Ahead.
I stand on it. I say I'm not the biggest Bethesda Game Studios proper fan. I love Bethesda Softworks.
Right.
I love their games. I think their games have always been great, even before the acquisition and everybody got all hot on them, right? But being hot on them for being signed and acquired does not necessarily equate, again, to others. Like Forte said, the masses get out of the Twitter space and start talking to some actual gamers who don't give a damn about Twitter.
Right. That's right.
Talk to them like Forte does and find out what they're thinking.
That's right.
People ignored Bethesda Softworks games before. So why people think all of a sudden Bethesda Softworks and all these things are going to light the world on fire? People were not picking up those games and playing them before, even though we were out there saying Dishonored is one of the best franchises out there.
Right.
But Bill even said it in his email when he was considering ZeniMax. He said they have a core audience and doesn't go beyond that core audience.
So this lighting the world, I mean, those games are fantastic, but they were not selling. So what's going to make people go, well, I'm going to play that because it's in a service. And again, time is another commodity. You only have so much time to play games. I'm sorry, we're all adults. I know they're kids, even kids have school and everything. You only can play so many games. Sometimes having something like a Game Pass gives me a little bit of anxiety as a gamer.
Yes.
It's like, I'm paying for this subscription, so I got to play this. At times it tends to make me cut another game off because it's like, well, I got to touch this before it leaves Game Pass, or I got to touch it because I'm paying for the service.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not knocking
less probability. You're like, oh, I'm wasting my time here. This game is not. I'm moving on, and you're easily moved on something else because you didn't buy it. You just you're more like going through the trying out games, see if you like it.
Jez, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, he makes a good point. I said this on the show, I think 3 weeks ago. I think I said it 3 months ago. This is the people, and guys, credit yourselves in the chat. Give yourself a pat on the back. You are a hardcore gamer. If you're here listening to this show, and thank you, by the way, 507 people still here. Please hit the like button. I do want to say this much. You are a hardcore gamer. This panel, hardcore gamers. But when it comes down to it, right now, currently, Cyberpunk, Starfield, you got Spider-Man coming out. I'm trying
to get
Mortal Kombat. I'm trying to get as many trophies as I possibly can in Final Fantasy 16. I mean, there's only so much time, right, or sand in the hourglass. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So when people go, Mooch, you're trying to tell me you don't enjoy the 200 plus games in Game Pass? I'm saying to you, I'm telling you, I don't have. Who's got time to play? I'm playing 5 games right now, and I'm juggling.
And Mooch, that's not a knock on Game Pass. That's actually a boon to what Game Pass offers.
Right.
But I'm saying at the same time, time is a commodity. That's a realistic thing. So when you get a game like a Starfield, and it's like, you're going to get varying levels of time that people put into that game. Some people may put, 50 to 60 and they're done. Some people may put 400.
Right.
It's just that thing where it's like, how much can I actually get to? So sometimes, there are still gamers who think that way. They may look at that and go, hey, I'm either exhausted from subservice. I already have too many things I'm worrying about on the subservice side of things. And that goes for PlayStation Plus as well. And it's sort of like, I don't have so much time to play. I'd rather just pick this up and go play it.
I'm going to say two things, that PlayStation Plus, Sony, I think they that whole increase in the price, they have been pretty trashy for the last month or so.
That was like,
they increased the price, and the games they put out, I'm just like, yes, I know Star Ocean, people like those. I'm like, nah, please, what we're doing here? They increased the price pretty high, and I thought they would do something. So they're lacking right now in that area. But
Stars is good though for.
I know it is. Yes, I know. People yelled at me about it. I know. Yes, Star Ocean. But I'm just But what I want to say and again, everybody teaches own. I'm just thinking for me, I just thought they might have put a more of a high profile game there, considering that they were increasing the price, and I felt like
Yeah, I didn't understand that, Jez. I didn't. It was like, you know,
Yeah.
you're kicking it up and you're saying you're offering the value, and that granted that may be a value to somebody, but I'm like, I don't
But
see that
we need a
level
little
of
bit-
value with what you're
Yeah.
doing.
We
For
need, like,
that
a
much of
little
an
head
increase, that's
I
crazy.
know we need a little bit of head, and I would say not even for the main PlayStation one, but I mean the essential, like the one that they went up, that's equivalent to Xbox Live for $60. Now theirs is 80 for a year. Like you offered, like you should have had a little bit more of a push, I think, in that one. But yeah, they are definitely lacking, and I know they probably want to pull stuff away for Spider-Man. I don't know, but
Yeah, they didn't even bolster. Like I'm laughing at Ryan, where Ryan Landis just put it. They didn't even throw like. The idea would have been to put in some of the best games you could have in the Plus that month to introduce, and then say,
Yeah.
okay, here's the price. Here's Saints Row.
See, I know,
And
Saints
a
Row.
big increase. It's like, what?
And what is next one? I think the next one was like not even that. Yeah, Saints Row. Like I'm like, what the hell? Like, and then they
Hey,
and then Port
yeah.
Volition, they shut them down right after they do that. I'm like, oh god, they get rid of
That's,
them.
that's the other crazy part. Is like, damn, man. It's like that's
Yeah,
just a
even if
bad
you
look
like it,
all
guess
around.
what? Then you never play another one. But one of the
Yeah.
other things I was saying, like what Mooch was saying, when we were listening to games that we're playing, and that's like the one thing is none of those games that you listed are in Game Pass.
No.
So like you would be subscribed to Game Pass with all those games, and you had to buy all those other games.
Right.
You were just like if those games were in Game Pass, then you could be like, well, okay, now we could maybe work with that. But that's the thing. A lot of the games that people are playing and buying are not in Game Pass. Like
Right.
Starfield, obviously, but like the Mortal Kombats, the Baldur's Gates, the
Final Fantasy 16.
Final
I mean, it
Fantasy
doesn't matter
16.
what-
and I need a Final Fantasy for now. The seven,
we
like
got
any of those.
We got
You
Mario.
know,
we got
those
Mario.
games, and October has a tons of games coming
Right,
out.
you've
and-
got Spider-Man, you got Mario Wonder. It doesn't end. You know. By the way, shout out to
yeah,
the great,
but also the third-party games that are coming out in October. There's a lot of them. Not a lot of them going day one in Game Pass. Like they're not getting those big third-party games that they need to get. And you know, and that's the thing. Now you're buying games, you're subscribing to the service, and
yeah, and
you know, I'm in the same experience right now where I'm looking at PlayStation Plus, and I'm just like, dude, this is a waste of time right now because I just looked at the list and I'm like, I'm not playing any of these games right now. I got too many other games to play.
That's the thing, and much like BG was talking about, I think he said his nephews with my kids, they're playing what Roblox, right? They're playing Rainbow Six Siege. They're playing Call of Duty, and they're playing Apex. So it's like they're not using Game Pass. I'm not currently. I generally am not using Game Pass. And then a game like Starfield, I wanted to own it. If I want to own a game, I want to buy the game, and I bought it on Steam because Bethesda games play better on
and the
Steam.
mods too.
The mods. Sorry about that. I just had a cough, so I muted myself in mid-sentence. I apologize. Hey, not everything goes great in production. But like, BRAP, I want to go to you here because you know what BRAP's doing right now. BRAP's breaking one of the CrossFire cardinal rules, but I'm going to allow it tonight because I can't blame him. I'm jealous I can't do it. BRAP's enjoying a little Cyberpunk 2077 right now.
Oh, no, I'm not playing it right now. I was
okay.
just,
I'm only kidding, BRAP.
no, I was actually just messing with some of the settings.
I'm just kidding with you, buddy. No, but
It seems
BRAP,
like you're playing a game.
it does. It showed up on my screen.
No.
But BRAP,
What day? Did you see people buy it like this week or something?
Yeah,
That people come in looking for Cyberpunk?
Oh yeah, I sold. I think today I sold like 2.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I had to
with the
dig
age,
my
yeah.
copy out, my PS4. I bought it at launch, and it's been like buried in like with my Blu-rays, and I never played it. Now I'm like, okay, it's time.
I got it on a digital sale for $10 a long time ago.
Weren't they selling at Best Buy for like $5 or something like that? $3.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
20. It was on sale for a long time.
Yeah. I bought it day one and never turned it on because
That's
it was
what I
terrible at
did.
that
So
time.
I just dug it out today. I'm like, it's time.
So shout out to the great Fork Boy. I don't know if you guys remember, but the great Fork Boy Gaming. Fork, when it came out, he was like, Mooch, I know you're looking forward to this. He goes, love what you're doing on the show. Gifted me Cyberpunk 2077 on Steam, which was very kind of him. I went out after the absolute, what do they say, kerfuffle, whatever happened with this game. And then when it was at GameStop, Forte, you remember this? I got the deluxe edition. It's still wrapped up. PS4 edition for $9.99 at GameStop, the physical copy.
Nice.
So I picked that up. That was phenomenal. I haven't opened it yet either. But what you guys need to know if you're thinking about picking up and starting to play is I happen to have it on 2 systems. So I have it on PlayStation and I have it on Steam. If you sign up, which a lot of people don't like to do, and I respect that, by the way. But if there's a cloud save, So you can actually go from your PS5 to Steam and vice versa, and Xbox. So I love this feature, so I'm going to set it up. I did set it up on my PC. I'm probably going to play most of it on my PC because it'll probably look a lot better on the PC than it will on the PS5. But I heard the PS5 version and the Xbox version look absolutely amazing. BRAP, have you played the new 2.0? I played about an hour and a half. You saw a little footage I had on tonight. Have you played 2.0 yet?
Yeah, no, I was actually just messing with the path
It's amazing,
tracing,
right?
And what's that?
Looks amazing.
Yeah, I was the path tracing, and then let me tell you, like it tanked my frames, which was expected given my GPU. But I did use ray reconstruction. I enabled that. I was able to get, and then cranked it up to like ultra performance on DLSS. Was able to get like 70 FPS with path tracing. But I just wanted to see how it looked with path tracing on. It looks really good.
So
what do you need to run with path tracing? Like what 4090?
No, he has a 30. What do you have?
I have a 3070, but I mean, like, yeah, I mean, you have a 4090. I mean, without having to do like the DLSS stuff,
I don't think I did the path, that tracing. I don't think I put that on. I did 1440p. I'm getting, I did high settings. I believe it was high settings. I'll send the Snapchat to BRAP afterwards. And I'm getting like 70 plus frames. And the game looks amazing. And I only have a 2080 Ti. So I mean, I'm really old school here a bit, but
no, it's a great looking game.
Amazing.
I mean, like, yeah, it's a really good. It's a shame that the game launched in the state that it did, and that was a really unfortunate botch by CD Projekt Red.
It was,
like it just. I mean, considering that they came off of
BRAP, didn't we
The Witcher?
Didn't we say back then when we were talking about this that we felt it was kind of the investors, and they were like, this has got to go,
absolutely.
it's got to go out, and because
it was them. Yeah,
I don't know if CD Projekt Red really wanted it to go.
No, I mean a lot of people. I mean, usually developers don't have a say when a game is going to release. It's usually the bean counters or the people that are involved in the operation, the decisions of the operation, the day-to-day, are the ones like, no, this game needs to come out. We need to start making money. And yeah, the investors, like somebody's just said in the chat. So, look, and I don't agree with Compost versus CDPR ruined their rep forever. I don't agree with that. I think, obviously their reputation was tarnished, but I do think that with what they did do is they went back, they put their head down to the ground, and they worked on fixing Cyberpunk, which they did. They have fixed this game, and I started a second playthrough even before the recent 2.0 patch update that just came out, and this game is much better than it was when I played it, and I played it at launch. I had performance issues, some bugs, didn't have quite the issues that other people had, and I'm not saying that those didn't exist. I had a 2070 at the time, and I was utilizing DLSS, and I was getting about, I was probably getting, 45, 60 FPS in that range thing on.
Right.
But then the city would just tank. It would tank my frames. But now you can limit the amount of NPCs in the city. You can, there's more customization in terms of settings now with this recent patch. And look, I mean, and if you look at the reviews of, this is why I don't agree with that commentary. If you look at the reviews of Phantom Liberty, the reviews have all been very, very, very positive.
Yes, they have.
Where people are saying this is like Cyberpunk coming full circle now, and this is what people expected the game to be when the game released back in 2020. So, CD Projekt Red did what they frankly should have done: fix the game. They did that, and they've added some more quality of life features. And I can't wait for, I think it's Tuesday that the Phantom Liberty goes live, but I can't wait. I mean, the storytelling.
The thing I want to make a point, Brad, you're really selling it good. But if you guys will look at the screen right now, you'll see that this is actually some B footage that I have that's an advertisement. But the thing is, when you're looking at this game, you watch a game and it's commercialized like this, and then you're like, boy, when I play it, it isn't going to look anything like that. That's the game. Like, that's the game. It's a beautiful world. And I think I'm a bit shell-shocked here a bit because I'm coming from Starfield. And I'm not going to bash Starfield. I put 30 hours into it. Me and BRAP have been talking behind the scenes for a few weeks now. BRAP a little bit more invested. He's well over 50 hours, probably over 60 hours now. And I just going from Starfield to this, I mean, the colors, the amount of population, the things to do, the interaction, the dialogue, you know, it's just an unbelievable RPG. And I maybe I wouldn't actually be enjoying it as much. Starfield was a little bit more, you know, mainstream, was a little more linear. Colors were a little bit more bland. Typical Bethesda, long dialogue. Shout out to the great Jez7780 who had to just leave, by the way. Jez, I'll be plugging the channel for you, buddy. But I don't know, BRAP, do you see my point? Do you see where I'm going with this? Maybe coming from Starfield into this, I'm maybe a bit, you know.
No, I mean, I
this
get
is
it.
overwhelmingly just day and night for me. Like, if I'm going to spend that kind of time and playing an RPG, this is phenomenal.
Yes, I think the Starfield world was more intriguing for me. This dystopian city, and you know, like these different factions, and there's different factions in Starfield,
Yes,
but it just never really. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, Starfield's disjointed at times, and there's times where I'm really enjoying some of the missions, and then it's like, and I get to another mission, I'm like, this was like boring, and or the voice acting just breaks the immersion for me. Like, the voice acting is so bland in Starfield. When you go and play a game like when I came off Baldur's Gate 3 into Starfield, so you look at the voice acting in Baldur's Gate 3 and you know, how the range that the characters have in terms of their dialogue. You know, but I again, I wasn't expecting Bethesda to put out a you know, game that looked on the same level as Cyberpunk. But the problem with Starfield is that the visuals aren't necessarily consistent either. There's times where I'm like, oh wow, this looks like a really good game, and there's times when I'm looking at Starfield, I'm like, this looks like a 360 game.
Yeah,
it's just never consistent, and so
that's it. But there's moments of brilliance in Starfield, and then there's moments of I feel like I hopped in the DeLorean and I went back to, you know, 2012, 2014. You know what I mean? It's just that's the thing. And you know, you could sit here and say, Mooch, wait a minute, Cyberpunk got 2-3 years to fix itself. That's fine. You can go ahead and critique that. I don't have a problem with that. But I'll tell you right now, in 2.5 years, the performance in Starfield might increase, but it's still going to look the same. And this game is just, I'm talking about visuals, and I'm talking about writing.
Yeah, and I feel like with Starfield 2, and I see what X Abbott said in the live chat, he said Skyrim Fallout were exactly the same. I don't think they're the same, X Abbott. I think one of the things Skyrim and Fallout, I thought the voice acting was better in Fallout 4 and Skyrim. I thought there was more of a compelling story backdrop world than Starfield. Like, I think Starfield, if you're a huge sci-fi fan, would definitely scratch that sci-fi itch, because definitely, I think we talked about this 4 days, a lot of nods to different sci-fi movies, television shows in game. Like, if you're not somebody who follows sci-fi like that, you may miss out on some of these things. But no, I mean, I just think that, you know, I'm more. I said this on BRAP. Like, I've stopped playing Starfield so that I can jump into Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, and you know, geez, like I'm looking forward. I prefer. I think I'm going to prefer playing as the character Idris Elba plays than
okay,
then you know, and what's his face, Keanu Reeves. That's one of the things I didn't like about not Starfield, but
Cyberpunk. Yeah,
Cyberpunk was I just really didn't care for his character much. Very much that typical Keanu Reeves type character he plays.
Yeah. It
just felt off. It just didn't resonate with me.
No, I didn't really get that far, so I can't comment on that. I do get your point. DC Gaming, DC, are you a Cyberpunk guy? Are you going to be jumping in? Are you going to be picking this thing up?
Hey, Mooch, real quick, I do have to drop that.
No, go ahead, Brap, and I'll plug the channel, buddy. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, no, everyone have a great weekend. Have fun playing video games, because it was all about.
That's right, buddy. That's what a great slogan.
Get better, man. Have a good one.
Perhaps you put that on a T-shirt. I love it. DC, what do you think? You jumping in the world of Cyberpunk 2077, or nah? You know, you're like, that's just not my bag.
I'm definitely gonna check it out. I mean, I got the digital copy, so I'm probably gonna download it and mess with it. I'm trying to finish
that's
up
right.
this Spider-Man Platinum real quick. I have like
Yes.
2 trophies left. And then after that, I'm going to beat Armored Core. So if I can fit it in between now and October 20th, I'll definitely play it for a little bit. But after that, Spider-Man's something.
I think that Cyberpunk's easily a 50-hour game. So, just taking that into account, DC, if you're still going to be doing Armored Core on top of that, that's you probably will get a good chunk of it done, but I don't know how much you'll get done before October. I'm planning to play this right through to this is the game. I mean, I am kind of dabbling to get trophies and stuff like that in Final Fantasy, but except for that, this is my dedicated game until Spider-Man comes out. So I did have a plan to talk about Spider-Man. But here we are. It's already 2.5 hours, and I promised these guys at 9 o'clock, as you can see, as the panel. I tell everyone 9 o'clock, and then I mooch their time. I gotta say, this has been an outstanding show, man. I love the show.
I did keep you 3 hours on DGS, so I can't. Man.
Forte's like, I got nothing on this. I kept it 3 hours, but that was a great 3 hours, Forte. And I want to say, I said it at the beginning of the show. I'll say it again. I hope the great Slow-Mo Backslap's feeling better. I know he was a little under the weather, so shout out to Slow-Mo.
Yeah, totally.
Guys, outstanding show tonight. Panel, thank you. Chat, thank you very much. By the way, please hit the like button. 450 people still here 2.5 hours after. I can't say thank you enough.
Hit that
like button, please. I will go here in reverse order, and then I'll plug some of the channels. Thank you, Mary Wilcox. This great show as always. Mega Cloud, outstanding to see you here as well. The great DC Gaming. DC, great to have you here. I know we had a bit of a large panel tonight, so I think we have to have you on again to really get into what DC Gaming is all about as far as your likes and dislikes and some of the gaming topics. But DC, outstanding. You were here throwing punches with the best of them. DC, let people know where they can find you, and thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, no problem. You can find me on Twitter, DC_gaming5. Usually post a lot of gameplay. I'm on all the multiplayer, so if you guys are ever trying to play some games, guys. So yeah.
Appreciate that, DC. Great to have you here with us tonight. Thank you, one nominal. Thank you so much. He says, great show, Mooch. Appreciate that, buddy. The great gaming Forte. Forte, this is 2 weeks in a row. I gotta say, if we do 3 in a row, I'm just gonna assume you're here all the time, which is what I want. It's what I've always wanted. The great gaming Forte, buddy. Forte, always good to have you here. I know you keep your ear to the ground for us. That's why I love when you're on the show. You're able to give real life examples. And it's a bigger census for us on the show and for the chat to hear because you're running 2 gaming stores, dude. You're running 2 stores. And like I say, next time I'm in Detroit, I am coming to see the great gaming Forte. But Forte, let people know where they can find you. And thanks for being here tonight.
Nah, man, I appreciate it. Always going to be here. I can make it. But DC, make sure you just get your words in, man. All you got to do is just butt in. And you'll fit right in. It's CrossFire.
No,
man.
I usually do. It's just that topic, it was kind of boring for me. So I'm like, I'm going to let y'all carry it.
I'm gonna just keep doing what I'm doing. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, great chat. Just great conversation. The yelling was at a minimum, which is great.
Absolutely.
And, even though I love when Mooch yells. But for myself, Gaming Forte, YouTube, Twitter, Xbox Live, and PlayStation, DPS, every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Come check us out. Me and the homie Slow-Mo Backslap. He's under the weather right now, so we missed this week, and we'll be back next week at the same time. And you guys got any questions, just hit me up and enjoy the games you're playing and have a good weekend.
Yeah, appreciate that, Forte. Great outro as well. I'll do a couple quick outros for the guys that had to leave early. Of course, Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Go over and check them out at BRAP Podcast over on YouTube. The great Eric Jackson, that's at EC Jackson. My man, Eric, the voice of reason. Eric, just love podcasting with him. And I have to thank people like BRAP, and I have to thank people like Forte and Slow-Mo for introducing me to Eric years and years ago. Just an outstanding gamer, great friend. So, Eric, thanks for being here tonight. If you actually get a chance to listen to the replay. The great Broken Games HDR. Great to have BG here, guys. Go over and check out Weapon Wheel Podcast this Sunday, 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time, every Sunday. He's got a great panel. Actually have another Weapon Wheel podcast member joining us next week. I can't wait to talk with him. It's going to be great to talk games. So opinionated, and I love it. That's what this show's all about. The great David Faulkner, who had to leave early as well. That's at Faulky87. FAULKIE87. Shout out to David. Thank you for all the insight and the things he does as well on Twitter. It keeps everybody in line. Guys, that being said, thank you to the chat. Thank you to everybody that's out there that's listening later. I appreciate that. We'll be back next Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Please, on the way out, hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. And I actually forgot. Straight Shot, he said, good luck with Forced X Play. You are warned. And TrueWiddy says, those casuals mostly play multiplayer, so they still need Game Pass. I didn't see those pop up on my screen, but they did just pop up right now over here. It was a delay. So those are the two I missed. And Jordan Garu has subscribed to the channel. Thank you, guys. Your names come up in lights. Impatient. I see you guys out there. Great show, Mooch. Thank you all. We'll see you next weekend. And like Brad said, go play some video games. We'll talk later. Peace out. Good night.